Hello.
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 We're here. Finally. We're going to do this thing.
Excellent. I feel like we've been waiting all week to do this.
Kind of feels like it. It's been a while,
Yeah.
especially for you two. Been quite some time. But when Dana and I did the show, that was what? Tuesday
Like
of last
Tuesday
week?
last week.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
So, like, almost 2 weeks.
Wow. Sorry, guys. Not you guys. Not you, Jeff. But, like, everyone else.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, I need to get the chat room. Why does it say that's disconnected? It's been interrupted. Try again.
What, the chat room?
Yeah, it's. I just need to refresh this window, I think. Yeah. Okay. Boom. Pop out to chat. Pop out to chat. Okay. Why don't I see anything in there? Oh, there it is. New screen behind it. Now it's just a. I've done this before. It's been a while since I've done it, but this is the big screen TV that I have up in our living room, and I was just playing around a little bit. The problem is it reflects everything, so
you can see all the screens behind you.
Yeah,
in front of you.
Actually, in front of me, yeah, but they're behind me.
The screens. I can see all the screens in front of you.
All over the place.
Behind you. Let me rephrase.
And I had to tilt it too, because if I don't, then some of this lighting that I have, it like reflects, and it's just like not. Why do I keep saying light? Like, it's like not good, not good.
It's like all the kids these days, they just say like all the time, like, you know,
like yeah,
totally like.
So how are y'all?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Oh, caught you in the middle of a bite.
That's all right. I'll finish this before we actually start, I think.
Okay. Let me close this window and close that window and close that window. Can close all these windows, I think.
Amateur hour on the APG show? It's just always amateur.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Who's saying that?
We don't get paid, you know.
X-Plane junkies. Identify yourself. You'll note that he does not have a spanner, so.
I see that.
Thank you. Yes, it does make a decent mirror.
You need to have a look at my T-shirt.
Show us your T-shirt.
My T-shirt.
Wait, I don't snore. Wait a minute. I got to increase the size of this window here. I dream that I'm a Spitfire. Spitfire.
Very good.
A clever excuse.
That's Julie bought it for me.
She's trying to tell you something.
Yeah. Oh, she's been telling me it for real for ages, so nothing special.
Okay. Oh yeah. What am I thinking? Captain Rizzo. Yeah, you make the videos and stuff. Yeah, it was a good time. Sorry. And thank you for the. I wear the T-shirts all the time. What is it called? Just the Tip. I think. Yeah, it's a T-shirt, but it has something to do with aviation. Slightly.
Okay, I'm just gonna let you continue talking about that.
A double entendre.
Slightly.
Yeah. Is that the right word? Entendre?
Yeah. Double entendre.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and start the recorder. And if you'll say something, please, Miss Steph.
Sure. I can talk about the dog that's now barking right outside my window that I just opened. Of course.
Of course.
I wanted to add some ambiance, and there you go.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
That's not Taco, is it?
No, it's my neighbor's dogs.
Okay.
She has 3 small dogs that bark a lot.
Yappy dogs.
Yappy dogs, yeah. Constantly.
Okay, I'm going to close this program.
gonna have to close that window again.
Was it going to get too hot? Yep. You have your
No,
air
just
conditioning on?
The air conditioning's on, but it's so pleasant outside. It's actually cool, kind of low humidity. Thought I'd open up a window, get some air moving a little bit. But now all I can hear is the neighbor's dogs.
Well, that's no good.
No.
Oh, I'm not paying attention to what's happening here. Congratulations, Rizzo. What is congratulations for?
Passed his commercial check ride last week.
Awesome.
CFI check ride week of
Yay.
August.
Yeah, I knew he was working on that. Okay. Dun, da, da, dun, da, da, dun, da, da, dun, 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 dun. Glad I played that because I just realized that it wasn't recording that track. But now it is. The music, intro, outro, all that kind of stuff track is now being recorded.
Perfect.
Uh-oh.
Who's talking in the background?
Is that Jilly?
Yeah, I'll just mute.
She hurt herself? Uh-oh. That can't be good.
Oh, no.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Mariana. I was just checking the sound. And let me get the Evernote up. Okay. We'll let Nick get all that sorted out.
Yeah.
Hopefully the Jilly's okay.
I'm in the poo again. Only the depth varies.
Do you need to go?
No, she fell down the steps.
Oh, no.
Into the garden. There are 2 steps into the garden, and she bumped her toe.
Oh, no.
So we're all very sorry about that.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But because I wasn't instantly available to give love and cuddles, I'm in the poo.
Well, you should be.
Oh, yeah, exactly right.
You're a bad person.
I am very bad.
You can desert us anytime.
Yes, that is definitely
comes second.
Domestic tranquility is definitely on a higher level than doing this silly show.
Right. I'm ready to start recording anytime you
Okay, start recording.
I am recording.
Yes, that's working.
Get our clacking devices prepared.
Yep. Here we go.
All
What
right.
is it to me? It's 331.
APG 331. 3, 2, 1, clack. And there you have it. All right. Thanks for coming out for the show, folks. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, good. We're done.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, go for that.
See you in 2 weeks.
All right. Bye-bye. You know what? Turn up the... Come on. That helps a little bit. I think. Yeah.
Oh, it's hot in here.
Okay. Yeah, kind of a heat spell there, huh?
You bet.
All right.
Hot and sticky, said the actress to the bishop.
All righty. Oh, wait a minute. Let me turn the speakers off there. There we go. Me. Hello. How are our levels? They sound pretty level?
You sound good.
Sounds great.
Sound great as well. Okay. Let us do. Are there anything that we should talk about before we start?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, we can always edit it and post.
That's right.
You
as
sure?
They say. Yeah, actually,
that's in quotes. Edit in post.
I really do edit a lot.
I don't listen back to the show, so I have no idea.
Steph.
Sorry.
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 Sorry. All right, let me check this level.
WAPG. It's the airline pilot guy. Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline.
How are those levels?
Sounds quiet here.
All right.
Yeah, we're here too.
Okay.
WAPG.
Still quiet. Oh, even quieter.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy. Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy. It's you ride and it's flying by. With the airline pilot guy.
Still quiet?
Yep.
Well, why is that?
Why is what?
I don't
it's-
know.
Why is that?
I don't have all the answers.
Why?
Just some of the answers.
Why is
Some of the
that?
time.
I know there must be a good reason for it. I just don't have that answer at this point. All right, hang on.
Yeah, exactly. Just fix it in post. It's fine.
Yeah, I usually do. Actually, I don't want it to be so overwhelming that you can't hear what I'm saying. I
Well, then
always
don't
do.
worry about it at all.
I always bump it up in post anyway.
They'll be
Yeah.
fine with that, I'm sure.
Adjust levels and stuff like that. Okay. All right. Here we go. Let me make sure that the Evernote is available somewhere. Okay. And it is 19.
WAPG. It's the airline pilot guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 331.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from the APG headquarters studios. Today's show was recorded on the 8th of July, 2018.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy. It's you ride and it's flying by. With the airline pilot guy.
In today's episode, an accidental hijacking alert, a hard landing in Japan, and a man shuts down a runway in Atlanta. More news, your feedback, and this week's Plane Tale, an addendum. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seatbacks in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 331 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we talk about news in the previous week and also answer all of your great feedback, or as much of it as we can. And joining me to help do that is a doctor from her beautiful lakeside home in South Carolina, a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot. It's Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff, and I am always happy to help answer all of that feedback and talk about the news as well. So excited to be back for a show. Sorry I missed you last week. Was not my intention. And looking forward to this.
Well, we're so glad that you're here with us this week. And we missed you. And also joining us from his recording studio outside of London, professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, current captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff, and hi, Steph. Yeah, for me too. It's great to be back on the show. Certainly missed being on the show last week, but it was a very good reason. But looking forward to making up time tonight.
Excellent. Yeah, I missed both of you. It was just Dana and I last week, and we kind of managed to muddle our way through it. But we had
You
a good
call
time.
that muddling? Yeah,
I listened live. It was a great show. I don't know what you're talking about. Nick and I heard things a little differently.
Oh yeah. So what do you mean?
I don't know. Just a guess.
Nick, you heard. So what you heard when you listened to the show wasn't quite up to the par that you're used to, or
Oh, I thought it was the comedy version. I didn't realize it was a proper show. I'm sorry. I thought you guys were just having fun.
Really? So I see some audio here in the intro that I'm supposed to play, and apparently it's how you heard Airline Pilot Guy episode.
Well, that's how it came through my speakers. I don't know about anybody else.
Let's see. Let's take a trip deep into Captain Nick's mind.
Steph, I don't think we should be leaving these two alone together again.
Anywho,
all right, looks like a good picture. Well, there's no actual verbiage with it.
pretty good, Dana. You are a blowhard.
Yeah.
No, where's the volume thing? Moving on. There it is. I hear the sound now. Whatever. Check it out in the show notes. There it is. I hear it again. It's not there. Yeah, go ahead.
West Wales, West Wales, West Wales, West Wales, West Wales, West Wales, near West Wales. Airport at Aberporth. I'm sorry, Nick.
That's okay, mate.
Aberporth.
But anyway.
2 accidents, source Thales.
Talus?
Thales.
Talus?
Thales.
Talus?
Thales.
Talus?
Thales.
It's not Thales. I believe it's Talus.
Thales.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about the company.
Oh.
It's not Thales. It's Talus.
Thales.
Anywho, I think we're at 50% still.
Close divulge. Developed from the Israeli developed Albert Helmsforth.
Hey, Albert Helmsforth is a friend of mine.
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. 99 bottles of beer on the wall. 99 bottles of beer. And excuse me.
Yeah. So the translation there is I had meant to. Let me see if I can.
I'm sorry.
Whatever. Check it out in the show notes. There it is. I hear it again.
And with that, Steph, I rest my case.
Flamethrower drone.
Yeah, I think the live recording was a little bit, I don't know.
I don't recall it being quite like I remember some of those little things there, but the way you put it together, it's actually much more funny the way you did it.
I think every show should be like that.
It should be.
That's the condensed version, like the Reader's Digest version at the end.
Yeah, you want to take that
APG
on?
about this week. Here you go. 2-minute version.
There
All
you
the
go.
highlight.
Here's the 5-minute version. Or 1:45 version, I guess.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So they're saying the volume is still too low on the.
It's still a little quiet.
Darn it.
I mean, I can hear it okay. It's just a little quiet.
Well, I just don't understand why that is. I'm sure there's a logical explanation for it.
Sounds okay over here. You guys sound quite well balanced.
Okay, but when I play sounds, they're not.
Yeah, they're just a little. Well, that last recording sounded fine. The intro music.
Oh yeah, the intro
was a
stuff.
little low.
I don't worry about
that's
that.
all.
But everybody can hear. So everybody in the chat room, could you hear that little piece that I just played that Nick did for us? I guess so.
Sounds like it got better.
Mic and sounds volume's good now. Okay, good. then we can proceed. Yes, methinks, of course, Lane says in the chat room, methinks Nick hath too much time on his hands.
Could be, possibly.
So explain again why you weren't with us last week, Nick.
I was having a lovely holiday with my gorgeous wife and 3 woofs on the coast, the south coast of Cornwall, a lovely area of England in the bottom left-hand corner on the big peninsula that sticks out into the ocean there. And we had a little wooden cottage that was balanced on the edge of a cliff. And we had a lovely beach in front of us. We climbed down to every day and walked the dogs. And in the evenings, we sat out on a big deck and drank chilled wine and watched the sunset. It was absolutely fabulous. A lovely week.
And you did that instead of being on the show? Are you kidding me?
Well, I'm looking forward to having you across here to drink chilled wine, and we can do a show together in my back garden. That'd be good.
I just don't think it's going to be quite the same, but thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all completely understand.
Absolutely.
You'd rather be on the beaches of Cornwall with your lovely wife and dogs.
Yeah, but I'm getting in the last throes now, getting back to work. So all I'm waiting for now is an email from the CAA reinstating my medical. And that's because I've jumped through every hoop. And that's the last step. And when they do that, I'll let the company know. And they will work out what to do with me. So it could be that I get something to do this month. More likely, I would expect probably next month, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, you know what? Next month, that would be perfect timing. That way you'd be home the entire time in the next few weeks, right?
It would be. It kind of depends how quickly things get organized and how desperate they are to get me in the seat.
Okay. Well, I'm selfishly hoping that it will be later rather than earlier.
Likewise.
Yeah. So, Dr. Steph, we all know where you were. You were in the parking garage. In fact, that was the name of the last episode.
I know.
Stranded in the parking garage.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I tried to leave. I tried to get home. I actually did leave work. I drove about half a mile and came face to face with just a solid wall of water coming down out of the sky. And I was actually able to turn back around and go back to the parking garage at my place of work where I was. So I thought it was going to hopefully pass rather quickly, and that turned out not to be the case. And the reason I couldn't drive home is because foolishly I did not have the top on my Jeep.
So
that
the
was
question, of course,
error.
is, have you taken care of that matter yet?
That has been resolved. Last
Oh.
weekend, I did put the top on the Jeep,
Excellent.
which usually goes on for the summer. However, I had the opportunity to take the hard top off the Jeep, which requires a little bit of help, and I installed a new lift in the garage, which got that all set up. Anticipated I was going to have time the same day to put the soft top on the new Jeep, which requires a little bit of installation. Took me just over an hour to do it. And that didn't happen that day. And then, of course, I was working and all kinds of other stuff. And yeah, thunderstorms in the Jeep.
Yeah. So 4th of July is the date that we celebrate Independence Day here in the United States. Did you have a good Independence Day, Steph?
Yeah, I did. I actually spent most of the day by the pool drinking alcoholic beverages.
Oh, that
So it
sounds
was
nice.
Actually very nice.
Excellent.
Can I just ask a question that Nev has posed in the chat room? He wants to know if it's legal to go topless where you live, Steph.
With the car, yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
and if you're
absolutely.
driving in the car, you can as well, or
Just the car.
just the car?
Just the car.
I guess there are a few places. Are there? I guess
It's
a couple of
It's a
places.
little conservative here in the South. It might not go over well if
Yeah,
you have anything more than just the car being topless.
Yeah, they're
You could always say it's a bit of performance art. I'm sure they get away with it.
I don't think that would go well.
No.
No.
It's Tanya tells us it's legal in New York City, and we know that Tanya knows that from experience, apparently, because she lives in New York City. That's what I mean.
Of course, yes.
And there are a couple of places, I think, down in Florida. There are some clothing optional beaches
Like
and
beaches.
such. Mhm.
Yeah.
But pretty much few and far between here in the U.S.
I wouldn't try it here. I don't think it would go well.
Yeah, probably
I
not.
think you'd end up talking to law enforcement.
Ah, okay. Well, let's keep our shirts on then.
How was your 4th of July?
My 4th of July, well, was very quiet. I, was thinking that I'd have to be home because that's the way it's been for the last 31 years because that's my oldest daughter's birthday. And so I made sure that I was going to be off for that. And then I was talking to my wife, Linda, about what are the plans for Alyssa's birthday. And she said, oh, well, she's not going to be here. Oh, okay. She's going to be down in Orlando. So she drove down to Orlando and met up with her brother and some other friends and spent most of the week, her birthday week, down at Disney World, a place that she loves. And she worked at one time. She was a college intern at Disney a few years back, about 8 years ago, believe it or not. And but my 3rd of July was exciting. I got to run by the airport. Actually, no, I drove by downtown Atlanta, picked up the good-looking Captain Jeff. He was at his layover hotel in downtown Atlanta, picked him up, and then we drove down south, down toward Noonan, Georgia, and met up with Dispatcher Mike and his lovely family. And we celebrated the 3rd of July. Actually,
Excellent.
Celebrated the Independence Day holiday a day prior. And we had great barbecue, pulled pork barbecue. And we also enjoyed an amazing fireworks demonstration put on by the fireworks master, Dispatcher Mike. So had a great time. It was good seeing Captain Jeff and Mike and Naomi and the kids at Dispatcher Mike's house. So that was fun.
And glad that all extremities are still intact after the fireworks display.
Yep, I got nowhere near.
Excellent.
I was a good distance away and lounging in a nice lawn chair and having adult beverages. And yeah, Mike still has all his fingers. Let's see. Before that, we did. It's been almost 2 weeks since we've done a show. So we did it on Tuesday of the previous week, and on Thursday of that week, I headed out to California for a certain legal matter that I'm involved in. And after the hearing on Friday morning, I drove down to Ensenada, and I think that's right, Ensenada, Escondido, maybe, or Ensenada. Well, I think we say something about where it was in the piece of audio that I'm about to play, and I met up with Brandon. So I'm going to go ahead and play that now. Hello, everyone. I'm here in Southern California for a legal issue, and it's kind of not a great reason to be out here in Southern California, but my day got a lot better because after the events of this morning, I had a chance to meet up with Brandon Gonzalez, the host of Podcasting on a Plane, Aviation podcast.
Hello.
And yes, if you've not listened to those great pipes, go ahead.
No, I'm just here to be. I'm here recording with the illustrious Captain Jeff, and despite the fact that I think there's actually an ant crawling up my leg right now, we are having a great time, just having some local San Diego favorites at Stone Brewing.
Yeah, Stone Brewing Company. Oh man, they make an awesome IPA, but they make a lot of other great beers as well. In North County, San Diego, I've been drinking their beer for quite a number of years. I've never been able to visit their brewery or their, what do they call this, beer garden?
Yeah.
And we just finished a wonderful lunch at the closer to the brewery, and now we're in this. How would you describe this? So you talked about the ants, so we must be.
What's kind of the thing about this place is kind of a one of a kind. I mean, I guess it's a beer garden, but they have this whole outside area where you can walk around and take your glass with you, and they have Adirondack chairs everywhere and a little pond and a waterfall, and
we're surrounded by bamboo.
It's like 73 degrees, and we're hanging out in the shade, and it's
are these called trees? Bamboo trees? Bamboo something.
They're
bamboo wood things.
And they're shady, which is the important
very
part.
shady. That's why we're over here.
And they're making a lot of noise, so I hope you guys enjoy that too.
Yeah. Are they? Oh. See, I don't hear it. All that hearing's gone in that right. Anyway, so as I said, I knew I was going to be out here in Southern California. I've been keeping in touch with Brandon because we're fellow aviation podcasters.
Absolutely.
And he knew I was coming out here, and he said, "Hey, if you have a chance, let's get together." And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that. So drove down to Escondido, which is where Stone Brewing is, or in this area, but this place is in Escondido. And it's been very, very fun. That's not a very good way to say that, but it's been a lot of fun. And the meal was awesome. We had this.
It was what, impossible?
It was
It
impossible.
was an impossibly good meal.
Impossible burger.
We
Which
both
is,
tried the new substitute for red meat, which is, I guess, a soy plant-based derived patty, but
pretty
it
much
was
tasted like beef to me.
yeah.
I guess.
If I hadn't known better, it would have
Yeah.
fooled me.
It was very tasty.
But yeah, the Impossible Burger. So we both never tried that and heard of it. So we had it.
Yeah.
It was great, and we had some different IPAs. I had a Funny Dude IPA, and you had a, what was it?
How was that Funny Dude? The Scorpion is what I had.
Okay.
Scorpion Bowl.
Did it sting you?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I still don't understand the name Scorpion Bowl and what it has to do with beer, but who cares?
Who
It was
cares?
really good.
Yeah, I don't know if mine was funny either, but it sure did taste good.
But what we're having now is really good. A nice dessert beer, a bourbon barrel aged something stout.
Yeah, bourbon barrel aged Arrogant Bastard.
Arrogant Bastard. Okay. And is there maple in there somewhere too?
I taste like it, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, it's really good. They're in a little snifter.
Cheers.
And cheers. And so one of the, and I've said this so many times, but I'm gonna say it again. One of the best things about doing the APG show is getting to meet people who listen to the show, support the show. Brandon's a member of the Coffee Fund cadre. Thank you very much for that.
Absolutely.
And it's just a lot of fun meeting like-minded people in aviation. Is that Dana? Did you just hear that? Do you think that thing picked that up?
Stand by.
Anyway, we just heard a motorcycle burst, or whatever you call that, rev or burst or obnoxiousness. So it must be Dana. But anyway, so we're having fun here, talking podcasting, talking beer, talking microphones, all kinds of good stuff. So
Yeah, I've got to say, I think you're the only person in the world that can both appreciate talking about podcasting, getting all pedantic about audio recording and all that fun stuff. I may have convinced Captain Jeff here to upgrade his microphone a little bit. Not that the one he has isn't amazing, but
but the one we're
I'm
using
working
right
on it.
now is like I can't wait to hear how this recording sounds.
Absolutely. So
Pretty cool.
I'm working on that, and but between the beer, the podcasting, the audio production, and aviation, I think we got all the bases covered. This has been a great lunch.
Tell us about your show, just in case. I mean, I can't imagine anybody listening to this right now hasn't already subscribed and listened to all of your shows. Tell us about podcasting on a plane. So sounds to me like you get on airplanes and you podcast.
That was actually going to be what I wanted to do. I was going to choose a different aircraft to record in each day as my recording studio, and
That can be expensive.
Yes, it was. They were probably going to be parked, but the first episode, episode 2, the first real episode that wasn't the intro, I actually did do that. I was on an Envoy Airlines ERJ, and I recorded with the individuals that came for a career day at the local flight school. And so I did, in fact, podcast on a plane one time. However, the difficulties that I found that day were that all of the fun noises that we know and love when you're on an airplane and you're going to go somewhere and have a great trip are kind of detrimental to recording a podcast. So
a little noisy environment.
Yeah, I thought it would be, just character for all of us aviation geeks that like to hear that kind of stuff. But really, when you're trying to record something and all you can hear is an APU in the background, it's not really character anymore. It's just irritating. So so now the podcast, what I do is I want to have it be. I've done a lot of things in aviation, and I want to share not only what I've done, but what so many other people are doing, because obviously aviation has no lack of things that you can do, of different career paths and things that you can try. And while there are a ton of aviation podcasts out there, what I like to do is cover as many different angles of aviation as possible. So I've spoken with people like Brian Terwilliger, the guy who pretty much single-handedly made 1-6 right, which is, I think we can all agree, one of the greatest aviation films ever.
Yep.
And so on. And I am an air traffic controller. That's what I do now. That's how I make my living, and I do that because, you know, with family life, I like to be able to go home at the end of the night, but still go to the airport each day. But as a pilot, I do miss flying professionally. I miss flying for a living, and you know, so many people that are friends of mine and family, you still do that, and that's great too. But there are so many other things that can be done that I want to cover all of it, and at some point, you know, maybe years in the road we'll have covered all the bases. But at this point, there is no lack of subject matter for stuff you can do in aviation. And a fun little side thing I kind of try to do is base it on ways that you could get into those career paths, if that was something that would interest you with whoever we're talking about with that day. So anything I can do in aviation to help promote and get people to, you know, make their living in aviation doing something they love is something I'm happy to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. So again, check out Podcasting on a Plane, subscribe, leave a great review for him on iTunes, and yeah, well worth your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What do you think? Should we go back to these IPAs?
Yes.
All right. Out.
That was a lot of fun. And Stone Brewing is an amazing brewery. I know that I'm sure that Steph has had some of their product.
Plenty.
Yeah.
It sounds
Quite
like
familiar.
you had almost a bit too much fun.
We didn't have that many. I think that was only our second beer,
Sounded like
right?
number 4 by your count.
Golly. Well, what
Yeah.
language was it you were speaking?
I don't know, but I'm kind of interested. You know,
American.
what's really cool about that? Yeah, American. What's
We're-
cool about that mic, Brandon, is that it picked up, I think, the conversation about 15 feet behind us almost better than our conversation. The mic that he's talking about is a Sennheiser, what was it, 416, something like that?
MKH 416.
Yeah, and it's a shotgun mic, and it really picks up stuff from a long way away. It's a condenser. I'm thinking, you know, it sounded great, but I think that I'll stick with my dynamic mic for now because my environment is not quite so quiet.
Varies from about 500 to nearly £1,000 here in the UK. That's a
Yeah, they're not cheap.
lot of dosh.
Those Germans really think a lot about their products.
Mm.
Yeah. Neville Bounds gives his thumbs up as well. The 416. I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm not going to get one of those that look you know, interested in me. Interested in me. Yeah, maybe I should cut down on the caffeine. But anyway, back to our visit with Brandon. It was a beautiful place, great food, and of course, great conversation. And yeah, we kind of geeked out, talked aviation, talked audio equipment, and digital audio workstations, and all kinds of stuff that you know, Nev could have joined us and really enjoyed it as well. But anywho, thanks again, Brandon, for meeting up with me and kind of taking my mind off of things that really did cheer me up and made the whole day, the whole trip out there worthwhile. So
Awesome.
yeah, so that was the weekend before the 4th of July holiday, and you know that having that holiday in the middle of the week always is weird. It throws everything off.
Any
doesn't it?
holiday in the middle of the week is weird because like our office is closed for holidays like that. So it's like you work 2 days and then you're off a day and then you have to come back to work. It's just not ideal.
Okay, yeah, that Thursday after the 4th of July, that 5th of July was like, it felt like it was Saturday. And then
Yeah.
Friday felt like Sunday. I got thrown out everything.
And now
off.
we're on to like second Monday here before the week actually starts.
Yeah. What
I don't-
day is it
I don't know
today?
what's going on today?
Where are we? We tried to do the recording earlier, and just our schedules just didn't work out. In fact, I hauled all of the equipment with me on my trip. I left on Thursday and came back yesterday, Saturday, and hauled around my very, very heavy bag of equipment, but it was still worth it.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you know, it was good practice for when I take all of that equipment with me next week, heading out to the UK and going to catch some REAT on Sunday. I know it starts on Friday, I believe, but Sunday is the last day, and I'm going to be staying with a very nice gentleman. If you've listened to Nick's Plain Tales episodes, he did a 3-part series with Nigel Demery, the 49ers, and he has opened up his home graciously to, I guess he's much closer to the location where the Royal International Air Tattoo is. And I'm looking forward to meeting him in person and enjoying his hospitality.
I had a feeling ran to Monday as well.
Oh, maybe it does. Okay. Well,
Either
if
way,
that's the case, maybe we should have gotten a ticket for Monday. But
we'll get a
anyway.
healthy
No,
dose of
no,
yes.
you are right. It ends Sunday the 15th. I've just pulled it up online.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to be up there on Sunday. In fact, I'm hoping to. I kind of cheekily told Nigel I'd be coming up to stay with him, so I'm hoping to come and join you on Saturday when you get up there,
Okay.
and then come with you to the show on Sunday. So that would be a great day.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think we have some media credentials for Sunday.
Yep. And
And,
thanks to Adam Spink. Thank you very much indeed, Adam. Nige has a ticket, so
Oh,
that
great.
should all work.
Excellent. Excellent. Hey, did you catch? Today has been a great day. The British Grand Prix just finished a few hours ago.
No, don't tell me the result.
Oh, you
haven't
didn't
Yeah,
see
seen
it?
some people have not watched yet, apparently.
Oh.
So
I
probably
was
no
bowling all
spoilers yet.
afternoon.
Okay, I won't talk
You were
about it.
bowling? I'm sorry.
Bowling. I
Condolences.
was competing. I
Bowling.
was competing in a bowls match all afternoon. Don't
Okay.
laugh.
It's a
I'm not-
very,
Not laughing.
it was a very, very interesting race. Let me just put it that
Oh,
way. Very exciting. Very exciting.
You know, I know you're, or at least you were a NASCAR fan. I watched the race at Daytona last night, the 400.
Okay.
That was one of the craziest races I've seen in a long time.
I didn't
I don't
see
watch.
it.
I don't watch a whole lot of NASCAR, but I was glad I tuned in for that one. If you want to
Really?
see some spectacular wrecks,
Uh-huh.
it was a good one to watch.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll catch a replay of it. You know, that's something that I've my interest has waned on NASCAR, unfortunately, but maybe I'll check out. I didn't even realize it was the Daytona race last night.
Well, it was a 400, not
Okay.
the Daytona race, but
Okay. All right. Well, cool. And then so after the race, I went to Mass and then set everything up for the show, and here we are. So it's been a good day, a triple header. Let's see what else. I think I covered everything that has gone on with me since the last show. A little bit of flying, a little bit of visiting, and other stuff. And I guess maybe, is there anything else for us to talk about? Oh, Dana's not here, as you probably have noticed. And I think he's somewhere out on that lake with his pontoon boat enjoying the day. So anyway.
yeah, a little bit jealous of that too. That sounds kind of nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day here, as it is in Charlotte. All right. Well, with that, I mentioned, I think on the last show I mentioned this, the possibility of the plane tale that you did regarding the VC-10 and Freddie Laker. Didn't somebody send in some feedback to us, Captain Nick, about the possibility of some misinformation or something like that? Did we ever sort all that out or not? You're muted.
Sorry, Jeff. Could you just go that again? Because I was muted.
Oh, you weren't listening either. So the way the mute thing works is that it only stops us from hearing you, but
No,
you
it
should
stops
Yeah,
still
my
he
brain
turned off his
working.
ears too. It was just like click,
No.
mute. Goodbye.
No, I was saying that I think when Dana and I were doing the show together last week, I mentioned just briefly that there may have been a correction involved, possibly because one of our listeners wrote in and seemed to think that some of the information in your plain tale about the VC-10.
Oh, yes, that's
regarding
exactly
Freddie
right.
Laker.
No, I'm
And
trying to
do we
remember
ever-
who it was. Do you have that bit of feedback to hand? Because I don't have it to handy.
Oh, no.
He said the VC-10 wasn't operated by Laker's Airline. And as it turns out, he is factually correct. Laker owned a VC-10, but they didn't actually fly it as part of the airline inventory. They subleased it to a different airline.
Oh, okay.
So in some respects, he's right. In others, he's not quite so right.
I see. So it's I'd say that's right straight at that 50-50 thing that we always
Yeah,
shoot
I would
for.
say it's probably half and half. So
Kind of a
that's
technicality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Excellent.
was Ralph Walker. Now, Ralph, of course, will say that no, he's absolutely correct. And
Of course.
I just went by what was on Wiki, which is probably not a brilliant idea, since nothing on Wiki is guaranteed to be right. But it did have it on
What?
the list of aircraft that Leica
So it's a
operated
great place to
on
do
those
research.
two sources.
Yeah.
So I
I've
did my
always
two-source check, but obviously both sources were a little bit in error.
They were probably referencing each other.
Yeah.
They could have been on Wiki. They could well have been.
Well, the way I look at it is that Freddie Laker had something to do with the VC-10.
Oh, he had one. Well, yeah,
you go.
exactly right. I mean, he
Perfect.
owned one. Or his airline owned one.
Okay. Well, then it's all settled. Right. So again, we're always striving to be as accurate as possible. So if we misspeak or you misunderstand something we said, please call us out on it, because that's
Absolutely.
what we enjoy.
Yes, we'll just strike you off our list.
That's right. We'll never hear from you again.
No, that's
You're
it.
dead to us. I'm kidding, of course, as far as you know. All right. I think it's time now for the Coffee Fund. The Java Jive, actually, from Jeff Smith.
I love coffee. I love tea.
I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Okay. Why the heck would we be playing the Java Jive? Well, that's the stuff that we play when we're talking about the Coffee Fund, which is your way to support the APG show financially, if you should desire. And of course, you have the resources too. And the folks that contribute to the Coffee Fund, we call the Coffee Fund cadre. A couple different ways to contribute to the Coffee Fund. One is the classic method, and since the last show, Jeff Moeller, Stephen Abreu, and Kevin Cole took up the charge and donated to the Coffee Fund. Thank you very much, guys. And the other way to do it is via Patreon. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/airlinepilotguy. And since the last show, we have a couple of new producers, actually a few. Christine Estancion, Joe, Terry Lou, and Charles Gruber. If you want to join the Coffee Fund cadre, please head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did. And we're glad you did as well.
Stand by for news.
Tower Delta 192.
Delta 192, sir.
Yeah, Tower 192, there apparently is a passenger opened up an overwing exit and is now on the wing attempting to jump. Can you alert police, please?
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain back with you. The situation is, as you may know, we had a passenger on board who popped open an exit. The police have been notified. The entire Atlanta airport is shut down right now until they come out here and secure this guy.
Wow.
We'll keep you updated.
What is he doing?
Yo, make sure his watchcard's not on here. His bag though.
Hey, Tower Delta 192, the passenger is mostly naked running across runway 27 right at Tango.
Okay, thank you. Somebody reported possibly seeing him from the tower.
Yeah, he's got his hands up. Yeah, he is walking across the runway right now.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there's a new one. Yeah, first time for us, too. And now that passenger is running back toward the airplane at this time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've stopped all ground movements. They're going to land the outboards. We're not landing 27 left currently, so everything's stopped. We got the police on the way. Okay, they have eyes on him, and they said he's under the plane.
Yeah, it sounds like he's hanging on the airplane trying to get back in, but we're not opening the doors to allow him in, obviously. So if you could tell police to hurry up.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Tower Delta 192. We now had a chance to get the full story from the flight attendant. What we had, apparently a passenger was outside the aircraft, or individual was outside the aircraft, got up on the wing and opened the overwing exit. So the individual who was running around on the runway was not on our aircraft, but he was outside the aircraft and attempted to get in the aircraft from the overwing exit.
Okay, thank you. Copy. Southwest 2003, I just closed the runway per officer request. Did you want to exit the runway?
We'll watch the show from here.
Yeah, Tower, just to be advised, they've apprehended the individual. They have him secured inside one of the police cars at this time, so they should be clearing our area shortly. But again, we'll probably want operations to just make sure and give us the okay. Everything's clear around us and behind us, so we can start an engine to get back to the gate.
Okay, I understand. Let me just check with ground. I think the police vehicles are on ground frequency, so I'll see if they can switch them to this, so we're all on the same frequency.
You know what, on second thought, just for security reasons, we don't know what this guy was doing on the outside of the airplane. We're going to leave our engine shut down. We're going to request a tow back in just to take it to the extreme on the potential security issues that may have developed as a result of this individual. We're not going to start these engines. We're going to coordinate with company and get towed back in.
Understand.
Good call. Yep, good call, guys.
Tower, outside.
Outside, sir, how do you hear?
Hear you loud and clear. You know what's the next move for this aircraft here at Tango?
Yeah, I was trying to get everybody on the same frequency so we could communicate better. Ops 5, he requested a tug, reference to individual and any potential threats there. He doesn't want to start his engine. He wants to be tugged back around.
All right, copy that. We'll have a tug come over to him and we'll bring him to his gate.
And Tower Delta 192 and Ops 5. Just additional, it appeared that when the individual came back toward the airplane in the grass between 27 right and taxiway, Tango, he dropped something in the grass, dropped a few things in the grass right there.
Did he come off your airplane?
Well, initially we thought that was the case, but apparently no. He came up from apparently outside the airplane and attempted to enter the aircraft through the overwing exit.
Wow. And he was naked?
Well, he had on underwear. Maybe he just wanted to cool off. New hire.
No.
Southwest 2003, it's going to be 26 left for departure. Go ahead, taxi down the runway and make your next right turn off to join Mike and hold short Juliet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, we're just looking at stuff. We're going to have to go back to the gate to get some more gas.
Okay, Southwest 2003, continue down the runway and I'll call your turn off.
Okay. That ended more quickly than I thought it would. Thank you, Captain Nick, for putting all that audio together. And yeah, so you're coming in from Miami, you're taxiing it, you've landed your Mad Dog, and you're taxiing in, and all of a sudden you see a person, a passenger, somebody out running around on the taxiway with just their briefs on. And apparently this guy jumps onto the wing and walks over on top of the wing, tries to bang on the emergency exit doors to or the wing exits to try to get into the cabin of the aircraft. And I've never heard of anything like this before.
It's a new one for sure.
Yeah.
Did you ever find out?
Everyone was having a lot of fun though.
Oh yeah. We'll just watch the show from here. That's fine.
Did you ever find out what, Steph?
Do we ever find out how the guy got on the airfield in the first place?
Breached some
Security
kind of,
somehow?
one of the fences. I think I read somewhere that said that he had actually made it over, what do you call that? Barbed wire and also that circuitina wire, and like has razor blades
Really?
Yeah.
on it.
Wow.
Yeah, and maybe that's why he took off his clothes. I don't know.
Maybe it got shredded.
Yeah.
He had no
But
clothes left to wear. Just
it
his
looks like the
underwear.
area of the airport that is kind of on the west end of 27 right, down there near where the terminal is, and like the parking decks and stuff like that on the south side of the terminal in Atlanta. But from what I could tell from the video and the pictures, but pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
Well, it was such an inconvenience. Guys were running short of fuel, waiting
Yeah.
for it to be sorted. So they were, it caused quite a lot of disruption. I suspect there were a few diversions.
Probably so. Yep. Yep. Okay. Anything else to be said about that? I mean, I'm really not sure exactly what to say other than, wow, that is strange.
Yeah. Just there's crazy people out there.
Yeah,
There
It's
really
a
are.
mad world.
It is. And a mad dog. Okay. Let's move on to this one. Whoops. A JetBlue pilot accidentally triggered a hijacking alert. Quote, a radio equipment problem, unquote, on a JetBlue flight. Yeah, we're all going, caused a security scare at JFK Airport last Tuesday evening, one of the Tuesdays before now. The flight, which was taxiing for departure to Los Angeles, became unresponsive to air traffic control shortly before takeoff. According to reports, the pilot accidentally entered a hijack alert in the plane's transponder, which is used to indicate an emergency. And then my little note there. No, it does not indicate an emergency. That's another code that we use. It indicates that you are being hijacked. So there are 4-digit codes that we use for declaring an emergency if we aren't able to do so, over the radio, or sometimes in conjunction with that. There is a code that we put in to indicate that we are having problems with our radio, which is probably what
they were trying to do.
Did it meant to do.
I was
1 digit off.
It's 1 digit off, but the way I was taught, and I don't know about you guys, but the digit that is used for the radio problems, if you turn that digit upside down, it almost looks like a microphone. And that's how you can remember that it's the one for the radio.
Oh.
And the other one is kind of squiggly in nature. And if you were perhaps being hijacked, you might take a squiggly course.
Wow, that seems a pretty elaborate scheme to just remember that the 5 is for the hijacking and the 6 is for radio out.
Yeah, but that way, if you're ever in doubt, you have a nice mental picture of which of the two you should be.
Well, then what about the one that's for an emergency? What is that supposed to represent?
I don't remember. I think there was something for it.
A Sith, like one of those.
Yeah, like
it's an airplane
Grim
flying
Reaper.
along and then crashing.
Going off the edge.
Okay, interesting.
Actually, I think that was it. Like if you're going down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Going
That's
down.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, armed police officers and FBI agents surrounded and boarded the plane to investigate and found no security threat. Passengers were taken to a new plane after the law enforcement officers left. The aircraft was inspected and cleared with no security threat while communication was reestablished via alternate channels. Authorities responded out of an abundance of caution. The aircraft was cleared and returned to the gate for inspection. Yeah, so basically after this has happened, no matter how much you tell them, no, it's okay. We just kind of screwed it up and, we're good. We actually turned up the volume now on this radio and we can, whatever happened.
We found the right frequency.
We flipped the right switch that somebody bumped and now we're on the correct frequency and it's okay. It's cool. But then they're going, well, I don't know. Is it?
How do we know for sure? Can you prove to us? I think the way we can prove it is by your aircraft.
Well, Han Solo tried it in the detention wing on the Death Star and he didn't get away with it. So.
Good point.
So, one of our aircraft on Acme Red did this by accident, coming across the pond and got met by some Canadian F-18s who quietly escorted them to the nearest airfield, where they then sat around and tried to explain what had happened.
Were they experiencing radio issues as well, or what?
They were experiencing button pressing issues. Yes.
Next time, don't let the flight attendant sit on the center console.
There you go.
And it was always just with the old style transponders, we were actually like turning dials to move numbers. We're always taught to use caution not to go through those 4 digits as you're going to your correct transponder code. It's a little bit easier with like the digital ones where you just push the button that corresponds to the number that you want to enter in that space.
Yeah, we have both. We have both kinds on the airplane that Dana and I fly. The ones that still have the knobs and the ones that have the, the buttons to push.
To be fair, this wasn't finger trouble with the box. This was finger trouble with an odd switch that the guy found at a funny little corner of the flight deck and didn't know quite what it did.
What does this do?
Oh, it's even better. That's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly right.
Now's as good a time as any just to give it a try, right?
Yeah.
Instead of maybe asking when I'm on the ground or the next time.
Well, yeah, there was nothing in any of the documents about it because the switch was a trial that was supposed to have been deactivated when they decided not to press ahead with it. But actually, the deactivation hadn't been done, although it had been written up. So when he pressed it, it did what it was supposed to do.
Wow. Anytime I'm in an airplane and I see something and I'm wondering what it does,
maybe just don't.
I just, I always opt for don't touch it.
If the plane is flying well without any intervention.
Yeah.
Don't want to find out.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, I guess we can move on. Micah said that I was supposed to play something, the first line of something for that first story about the naked guy. So let me see what it is that I should play. Why is it not working? Oh, here we go.
Old lady lost in the city, middle of a cold, cold night. It's 14 below, the wind started to blow. It wasn't the Boy Scout in sight. Pull down the shade 'cause it's coming. Turn off the light for his hip. Running hard down the street through the snow and the sleet on the coldest night of the year. Beware, beware, beware of the naked man.
Ah, beware of the naked man.
Beware of the naked man.
Thank you, Micah. Micah's always right there with a great song suggestion. All right. Are we still on the air?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know.
Now, how do I get my chat room back? I clicked on it and I lost the chat room.
You push a button that you were unsure what the button purpose was.
Yeah, I did. I shouldn't do that. I just said I should not do that. Yeah. I know. Well, how do I get it back?
You go back to YouTube and you start over.
So what's the keyboard shortcut for going back a window? Oh, that's not it.
I have no idea. I don't use a lot of the keyboard shortcuts.
There is. It's a way. There's a way to go back. But see the window the chat room window that I popped out. It doesn't have any of those little.
You just closed it though, correct?
No, I clicked on Micah's link that he had in the.
Yeah, when it goes to a new link, there's no back button.
Yeah, you're gonna have to restart.
There's got to be a way to do it.
Open it in a new window.
Well, you'd think, wouldn't you? But no one envisaged that when they designed it.
Because it's a pop-out window.
What I should have done was before I clicked on it, I should have held down the command key.
Correct.
That would have opened up in a new window, but I didn't know it was going to do this.
Yeah,
Thanks,
the
Micah.
F3 brings up all the windows, but of course you've closed it, so it won't be amongst them.
So that's not going to do any good. I know that there's a way to navigate to a previous window, but I just don't remember what the combination is. Obviously, all the buttons I'm pushing is not doing. Okay, I guess I give up. I'll close this window, and I'll reopen a chat window, and it's probably going to play our audio. So sorry.
Mike reckons command left square bracket.
Well, now that I've closed that window, I can't tell if it's going to work for me or not. Okay, I go to YouTube. Sorry for the interruption, folks. It's Micah's fault. He knew I'd go for it. Dun, 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 dun. Come
So,
on.
do you hear about the frog that went into the bank to get a loan? And he walked up to the teller in the bank and said, "Oh, I'd like to borrow £30,000 to have a loan. I'm going to go on holiday." And the teller said, "Certainly. What's your name?" And he said, "Oh, Mr. Jagger." And he said, "Okay, Mr. Jagger, what security can you provide for this very large loan?" And he held up a very little petite china elephant. And he said, "There you go." And the teller said, "Well, I don't think that's really going to work for us, Mr. Jagger." And he looked at her nameplate and said, "Well, Patty, I think you'll find that I know the manager very well. So I think you should go and ask him if that's going to be okay." So off goes Paddy Whack to the bank manager and said, "Look, there's a frog out here called Mr. Jagger who wants £30,000, and all he can provide for in security is this little china elephant." And the manager says, "Oh, that's okay. It's a knick-knack, Paddy Whack. Give the frog a loan. His old man's a rolling stone."
Very nice.
Wow.
That's a lot of setup for
that
line.
We had to go a long way for that one, but it was worth it.
It was worth it.
there
I
you
enjoyed it immensely. Thank you.
Yes. Now, if I could just find the laugh.
Have you found the button yet?
No, I was able to finally, open up a new window.
Cool.
Finally,
Okay.
Isn't that like one button to press? Like if you go to the show
Yeah,
notes,
but-
doesn't it just say link to YouTube?
Yeah,
And then
that
you
would have
pop
been
out
the
the
easy way to
chat.
go, but then I have to open up the show. I don't have the show notes thing.
Oh,
So, yeah, I decluttered and I have like 3 or 4 different machines running various things. So, yeah, it's too complicated to even explain. Okay, well, that was interesting. Thank you, Micah. Let's continue with the third item in the news folder, which is an update on this guy. I'm playing his music. A Russian guitarist happened to be vacationing or on holiday in an island somewhere in the Atlantic and picked up some kind of a disease. Oh, yeah, you'll remember we talked about this incident on a Transavia flight not too long ago where there was some guy, happens to be this guy, kind of a famous guitarist, a Russian guitarist, and he was he smelled. He was quite stenchy, and they ended up diverting to Portugal and got him off the airplane. Well, it turns out that he had a necrotic tissue disease, according to the Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf. The unfortunate passenger has now been named 58-year-old Andrei Sushilin, a Russian rock guitarist. And let's see, it's now emerged that the smell was not caused by a lack of hygiene, but rather tissue necrosis. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. When the body's cells destroy themselves using their own enzymes, usually following an infection. After being removed from the plane in Faro, Portugal, he wrote on his Facebook page, "The tragic and comic component of this whole situation is that I caught a disease, which, let's not say how and why," of course everybody's wondering, makes a person quite stinky. Suchilin was taken to the hospital for treatment, but his condition deteriorated, and he fell into a coma. Despite multiple surgeries attempting to stop the infection, he passed away on June 25th. So, a sad ending to that kind of odd story. Now, we kind of hinted that when we were talking about this on the show a couple of weeks ago, that it could be. I think maybe Steph, you mentioned that it
Nope,
may.
it was Nick who mentioned that it was potentially a medical condition, and to be honest, this is not one that I was actually thinking of, because this is a pretty rare thing. It's funny, they told him before he left his vacation spot that he had an ordinary beach infection, and they gave him some antibiotics. Well, clearly that was not the case at all, and I can't imagine. It must have been quite a bit of tissue necrosis to cause such a foul stench, really.
So what exactly is it's just your skin is just kind of dying?
Yeah, basically. And skin and subcutaneous tissues, and it can eat into muscle and bone. And I mean, it smells bad when that's going on, but for it to be that advanced that it would cause that much of a problem on an aircraft by the time he boarded it, he must not have been feeling very good at all when he got on the plane. And probably
I wonder when he last had his dressings changed or whatever.
I mean, what kind of medical attention he actually got before he left. It doesn't sound like it was nearly appropriate enough. But
yeah,
you never know.
It's the kind of thing where
of this story.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of thing where if you would hope that if you were the one suffering from that, if you were the one who had contracted that, you would recognize that perhaps this was a little bit more than initially thought, and you would go back for additional treatment. But people have get-home-itis too. It's like, well, I'll just get home and take care of it, and it won't be a big deal. And sometimes these things can progress really, really rapidly as well.
Yeah, very sad.
That is very sad. Very sad. Okay, well, as I said, he was a respected professional guitarist, and his band, C Major, was a founding member of the Moscow Rock Laboratory, a trailblazing institution that helped bring rock and roll to Russia in the 1980s. More recently, he worked in journalism and sound engineering, as well as writing music for theater shows. So I'm sure he'll be very much missed by his fan base and family and friends. All right. Anything more to say about that?
No. Nope.
Many of you, by the way, thank you. Several people sent in feedback regarding that, and we thank you all for that. This is an interesting one. Did you have a chance to look at this video of the Korean Air 777 landing at Narita?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I've seen this one.
Next time someone shows me a picture of an Airbus wheel that's gone square, I'm going to reply with a picture of this 777 bogey.
Yeah, so he's coming in for, he or she, the pilot is coming in for landing at Narita. We'll put the link to the video in the show notes so you can all watch and cringe. You see, obviously, Narita is always quite windy, it seems. They were coming in and the winds were quite strong. I don't have the METAR here, do I, anywhere? Oh, wait a minute. No, we do.
Yeah, we've got it. 210, 14 gusting 24. There was 17 gusting 28 at some point.
Okay. You know what the how the runways are oriented?
Yeah, it's 16. Okay. I think so.
So it's a significant crosswind, gusty crosswind. And as you'll see when you watch the video, coming in, and at some point, if you look at the flight controls, you can see that whoever was actuating them kind of almost looks like they got into a PIO or something. They got a little bit behind or out of sync with the airplane, trying to keep it from slamming down. The first time kind of ballooned a little bit, and then the second time it came down hard on the especially on the right main landing gear. And you'll remember that the 777 bogies, main wheel bogies, are 6 tires on each side. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and the trailing 2, I guess, on the so that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wheels 11 and 12. Is that right? Were the ones that kind of got the brunt of the impact and basically broke the axle for that particular pair of wheels on the right main. And pictures will show that it's quite a mess. Lots of sparks. And
yeah, I don't think that's going to fly for a little while at least.
Yeah, time to replace at least the right main landing gear bogie on that jet.
Yeah, Narita, it looks like it's a benign area. It's relatively flat around there. There's no hills or something to make rotors create turbulence. but it has a little bit of a reputation as having some difficult winds, and the winds seem to shift quite a lot. So despite the fact that, generally speaking, it's a relatively benign airport to go into, I and a few friends have certainly met some difficult conditions going in there at times. Really weird, strange winds. So whether it's a factor of the area or the latitude or what, I don't know, but it can be quite a difficult place.
It's not the first time that there have been accidents related to winds at that airport, and I'm thinking of a relatively recent one. I don't know, within the last few years, a FedEx MD-11 crashed, and I'm not sure if anybody survived that one. It was a pretty nasty accident. I think it was Narita. They say that the MD-11 is quite a handful to land in gusty crosswinds. I've never flown it myself, so I don't know. But anyway, I just thought about that. And somebody told me to cue the Go Around song. So I guess, in this case where you're coming down and things kind of get out of whack, you can always go around, right?
Indeed.
You can always go around. All right. There you have it. Enough of that one. Next one. This isn't interesting. Or as Paul Harvey used to say, this is a strange. Actually, not really. Boeing has decided to form a partnership with Embraer, a Brazilian company. Under the preliminary deal, Boeing will own 80% of a partnership controlling Embraer's commercial airplane and services business, while the Brazilian manufacturer holds 20%. The company said in a statement on Thursday, the tie-up caps years of talks between the two while extending the duopoly held by Boeing and Airbus SE as competitive threats emerge from rivals in Russia, Japan, and China. And the Embraer's E-Jet family is being added to the portfolio. So they make the 170, 175, the 190, 195, and then the E versions of those models. And that's going to be kind of offered, I guess, as part of the Boeing lineup of airplanes, just as Airbus and added Bombardier's C-Series on the 1st of July. So, and interestingly, they said that a lot of this, when I first saw this, I'm thinking, well, obviously that's a reaction to what happened between Airbus and Bombardier. But they said that actually it may come from the threat that they're seeing from some of these manufacturers in China and Russia.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'd think they'd be able to make their own, but apparently they think Embraers might be better, I guess.
Yeah, just like
if somebody else is already doing what you'd like to do,
yeah,
instead of trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, apparently those are pretty nice airplanes. Everybody that I've talked to who have flown the Embraer 170 through 195 series, I don't know if that's the right way to refer to them, but the engine or the wing-mounted engine airplanes are very complimentary.
I've flown on a lot of them, not flown them myself, but they are comfortable.
Mm-hmm. So that's $4.75 billion. That's a lot of money. A lot of money.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. And anything else to say about that?
No, I've seen a lot of talk about it, but I'm not sure I understand all the business ins and outs of it. So I'm just going to keep my opinions to myself for the moment because that's kind of all they are.
Yeah.
It'll be another nice airplane with Boeing stamped on it.
Very
good.
We
won't say anything about the C-Series having an Airbus name stamped on it. It's fine.
Yeah, but that was to save them.
Uh-huh. Well, that's what everybody, they kind of formed the narrative around that. But I'm wondering if it now has more to do with the fact that they see this threat from manufacturers in different parts of the world as the greatest threat. I don't know. Yeah. We'll find out as time goes on, I guess.
Yeah.
And finally, The last item in the news folder, Egypt Air Flight MS-804, French investigators says fire. French investigators says fire, likely cause? I think I would have said French investigators say fire, likely cause. Oh, well. The crash of Egypt Air Flight 804 in 2016 was probably caused by a fire in the cockpit, French investigators say. They said onboard recorders suggested that the blaze had spread rapidly through the plane. The findings contradict Egypt's earlier statements that explosives have been found on victims' remains, suggesting that the aircraft had been bombed. 66 passengers and crew died when the flight from Paris to Cairo came down over the eastern Mediterranean. France's Civil Aviation Accident Bureau, known as the BEA,
Bureau d'enquête et d'analyse,
said in a press release on Friday, the most likely hypothesis is that a fire broke out in the cockpit while the airplane was flying at its cruise altitude and that the fire spread rapidly, resulting in the loss of control of the airplane. The agency said that the crew could be heard discussing a fire on the cockpit voice recorder and that systems on board had detected smoke inside the aircraft. Egyptian officials previously said that the crash, which came 7 months after a Russian plane was brought down by a bomb over the Sinai Peninsula, was likely to have been a terrorist accident. So the article goes on to say that the BEA has said it is awaiting Egypt's final report into the crash to understand the differences in their conclusions. And sort of related to that, a few episodes back, there was a group of people suing Apple for, they said that an iPhone or an iPad caught on fire and caused this whole tragedy. So, interesting.
Yeah. There doesn't seem to be any evidence for that. As I listened to This Week in Tech, they discussed this and they came to the conclusion that it looked like people were just firing lawsuits at those with the deepest pockets in the hope to get some recompense.
Yep.
Yeah, that never happens, does it?
No.
It's a sad world.
That can't be right. Okay, well, we'll see. It will be interesting to see what the Egyptians' final report says and how it compares with the French investigators' reports. Okay, that's it for the news. Now, the best part of the show, your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
All right. Tom, a new syndrome sufferer. Oh, we played this on the last episode, and he was basically asking us, and we were thinking that Captain Nick would probably have been the best person to answer this question. I'm not going to replay his audio feedback. Just go back to episode 330 to listen to Tom Harris's feedback.
Yeah, I can describe it. Basically, he'd watched an aircraft come close enough for him to go, "Oh, wonder what that's doing," and he was following it on flight radar, and it was a Virgin Atlantic A330 that was doing like 310 knots in the descent below 10,000 feet, went straight under the hold, piled into the ILS, threw everything down, slowed up and landed. So he was asking the question as to why Virgin Atlantic seemed to get priority treatment, seemed to be able to break the 250 below 10,000 foot speed regulation, and why they didn't have to go in the holding pattern. And although it's quite common that, of course, a superior airline like Virgin Atlantic would get priority treatment just because their passengers are the nicest and they want to delay them the smallest amount. In this case, it wasn't down to that. It was, in fact, I've discovered, having contacted a few guys at Heathrow Tower, and thank you very much indeed. You know who you are, much appreciated. It was indeed a medical emergency, which was the suggestion that Tom put forward. The passenger had a suspected cardiac problem, so something wrong with his heart. The flight had declared a pan, so that's an emergency level of urgency, and the aircraft was given a high-speed descent and brought straight into land. And presumably medical facilities were there and available for the unwell passenger as soon as they got onto the gate. So I hope that answers the question. Can't find out the result of every single slight anomaly on every aircraft, but this one we were lucky. We managed to find someone who knew what had happened.
All right. Yeah, that's what everybody suspected was the case.
Yeah.
So thanks for following up on that, Nick.
No problem. And thanks to the guys at Heathrow.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Number 2, BA incident at Las Vegas. We also talked about this, I believe, on the last show. This was sent in by Steve Hurst. See what happens when you're not here on the show to answer these questions? We have to cover them more than once.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Anyway, Steve was writing in to tell us about the final report on the incident, the British Airways incident, the 777 at Las Vegas. And they kind of analyzed how the crew reacted to the emergency. And he was wondering about what we thought about their conclusions regarding the fact that the checklist wasn't followed exactly. And anyway, wondering if you might have anything to say or add to what they came up with here on this.
Yeah, well, I listened to your reply, Jeff, you and Dan. I thought you had it down pat. I think it was a case of an unexpected event, particularly since the guy was his last ever flight. He'd gone through probably an entire career, perhaps without too many major emergencies. And the last thing he was expecting was this. One would hope that training would kick in, because we do get these kind of incidents fairly regularly in the simulator. But it looked like he didn't entirely complete checklists and skipped a few actions. But it's not just the captain's problem. It's everyone on the flight deck. Everyone either reads or responds to a checklist. Anyone can stand and go, "We're not doing this right, hang on." There were lots of people who could have spotted, or a couple of people who could have spotted that there was an engine still running, this sort of thing. And the evacuation, I think there was a discussion about the evacuation. I think having said that, there is a review going to happen concerning passenger evacuations, and perhaps the system currently used isn't realistic enough to get genuine evacuation times. Having said that, this evacuation occurred. It was well controlled once the evacuation was called, and everyone got off the aircraft safely, which to me is the proof of the pudding. Wasn't done our daily. And the thing I love about our industry is that it's a no jeopardy. If you do something like this and a mistake occurs, what we do is we learn from it. And I know that's such a cliche nowadays, because every time any organization makes a mistake, they say, "Oh, lessons were learned." But in the airline industry, that is really true, because it'll be amplified in training. People will say, right, okay, now this was a problem with this. And we all study and watch and see what happens to our colleagues when they're in these situations. And we really do take it on board when we see a slip up, even if it didn't cause any problem really for the passengers, or, it was just really a problem perhaps for the fire guys trying to work out what to do with the engine that was still running. It might have been a problem for the evacuation, might have delayed it slightly because they couldn't get out quickly enough because there was an engine still running. A little bit of confusion there. So we all pick up on that, and we all sit back and go, right, when this happens to me, not if, because the best thing always to think is it will happen to me one day. I need to be on my mettle. You're better prepared for it the next time round, rather than having these incidents hidden under the carpet, and so that no one finds out about them and no one gets embarrassed. Well, that's not our way. We bare our chests and we accept the consequences of our actions, and we are prepared to be fully debriefed and then move on with the state of knowledge that we will do a better job next time.
Well, and the reason you want to go back and study these types of things, or at least look at the sequence of events that happens, is because you can train for simulated emergencies all day long. But when you have an actual emergency, things don't always play out in exactly the same order as you might expect. There might be things that are way outside the realm of the unforeseen, and that can throw a wrench in even the most rehearsed procedures. And like Nick said, you just want to be aware of what has happened in the past to people who have had that happen to them, so that you can mentally rehearse that in your own mind, even if that's not the way that you usually would practice it in a more standardized environment.
Yep, exactly right.
Very well said. Speaking of evacuations, yeah. We talked about an evacuation some time ago, where it involved the airplane that I fly, and there were folks standing on the wing and saying, the slide didn't deploy, and we were kind of making making fun of them for not knowing that there aren't slides, the overwing exits on a Mad Dog. And so the last time that I deadheaded, I pulled out that safety card and looked at it, and I was sitting in the exit row where one of the wing exits were. And I was looking through it, and I'm thinking, they don't really say anything about it in the actual safety briefing itself. And you really have to look hard at a very small drawing if you are going out the overwing exit on the airplane that I fly, and what you're supposed to do if it's a ditching situation, and what you're supposed to do if it's a on land kind of a incident. And looking at it, I'm thinking, I can see why people wouldn't really know exactly what to do if they went out the overwing exit, unless they specifically were, looking for the instructions for that sitting there. You know what I'm saying? It was like,
I know exactly what you're saying, because I did the same thing the last time I flew. And on an aircraft that I've flown a lot on, a Boeing 737.
Mm-hmm.
And because the company I was flying on operates a couple different variants, currently the 700, 800, and MAX 8. There are a couple different, variants of how the safety equipment is configured. The doors all open the same way now, so you don't have to worry about pulling down the overwing door and throwing it out the window. It's just a handle that you pull, and it
kind of hinges up, right?
But depending on the aircraft that you're on, and depending on the route that it's flying, some of them do have rafts in different places that you could potentially take with you, but not on every aircraft. And there are several different types of rafts and slides, and they all have different procedures for how you would remove them from the actual aircraft once you were outside the aircraft. I'm looking at it, I'm going, there's no way anyone reads this. I'm the only person reading this ever.
Yeah, so I looked at my seat assignment, and I specifically asked for a window, because I always enjoy, as I mentioned before, I like having control of the window shade. And I got to my row, and there was a lady and her husband sitting in the window seat in the middle seat, and she looked at me, am I sitting in the wrong seat? And I said, oh, that's okay, I'll just sit here on the aisle seat. And so we're sitting there having a conversation, and I said, if we have an emergency evacuation, this is what is going to happen, and this is what we're going to do at the door, and this is the way you're going to go out when you get out on the wing. And I felt like I needed to say
3 eyeballs.
Pardon me?
Was she looking at you like you had 3 eyeballs?
No, she was. They were not seasoned flyers at all, and they actually seemed to appreciate my interest in, informing them that this is what we're going to have to do. And as I said, that's when I was looking at the safety card. I'm going, I think that it could be a little bit more, explicit, or maybe something mentioned in the actual safety video or the demonstration of the flight attendants.
Specifically on this aircraft, here's what we have.
Pet peeves, those videos and the safety cards. They're depending on the airline, they are way too cartoonish. They're way too divorced from the actual airplane. They're way too jazzed up, and you don't get a real pictorial indication of what you're supposed to do and where you're supposed to go, what it actually looks like on the aircraft you're sitting on. You often get, pretty pictures and weird illustrations of what an airplane is like and what you might be expected to do. And the same is reflected on those cards. they're often too small to read easily. They're often too cartoonish to be able to see exactly what is required. And I think it's time to just bring those down a notch or two. And I realize there is a good reason for having an engaging video and something that is fun to look at, the safety card, but you've got to meter that against the information it's trying to impart to make sure that it is clear, factual, and accurate for the aircraft you're traveling on, what you need to do in an emergency.
Yes.
Agree.
And perhaps I was just thinking, on the airplanes that have overwing exits and people are sitting in the exit rows, the flight attendants are supposed to personally brief everybody, and that's what happened in this case. Do you understand that you're sitting in an emergency exit row, and do you understand what
verbal
confirmation? And you have to say yes. You can't just nod your head. I mean, they're expecting you to say the word yes. That you're willing to be responsible for this. And it seems to me that it wouldn't be that difficult to mention, oh, by the way, if we end up aborting a takeoff, this is what you do. You go out this way and you turn right. Or if you're on the side, you go this way. You go on the back side of the wing and slide down the flaps.
Yep.
But, I don't know.
No, that level of detail never gets mentioned. I sit in the exit row quite a bit.
Yeah.
And there's varying levels of instruction that go on as well.
Right.
It's like there's a bare minimum standard, and then there's like the above and beyond additional information that sometimes gets passed along.
Huh. Well, all interesting stuff. Thank you, Steve, again for bringing the report to our attention, and we'll move on to the next item in the feedback folder. This is from Mike Dell, who is also the host of several podcasts. He's my podcasting guru.
I didn't know he was doing one called the Fast Food History Podcast.
I didn't know either until I was looking at his feedback.
That's right up my alley, Mike. I'm going to subscribe right now.
So yeah, fastfoodhistory.org. I have not listened to it yet either, but you might want to check it out. All the links will be in the show notes. But anyway, I know Mike from the fact that he's a longtime listener and follower of the Airline Pilot Guy show. And I know that he has been involved in the podcasting world for quite some time. He's an expert, and he does a show called Podcast Help Desk. And also he has something called Mike Dell's World Studio /podcast. And no, it's not the same Mike Dell that from Dell Computer, although he probably wishes that he were that Mike Dell. But he was also in the U.S. Air Force years ago as a navigator. And so that's the reason why he likes listening to our show, and he sometimes contributes to our show as well from his previous history and experience and expertise. And he writes, attached is a couple of recordings I did of sidebar articles that were printed in December 1987 Air Force magazine by a guy named Bruce Callender. Bruce was a nav, bombardier. So now I'm going to say bombardier, but in this case it's bombardier in World War II and Korea. Bruce was also a writer for Air Force magazine, along with other publications for 30 plus years. Bruce Callender passed away last year at the ripe old age of 94. Wow. Nice long life. The main article was called Navigators with a Difference. The article was about the change at undergraduate navigator training, UNT, at Mather Air Force Base in California, from a one-class-fits-all to SUNT. He says, nice acronym, which stood for Specialized UNT, which is, again, undergraduate navigator training. Anyway, interesting stuff he was talking about 30 years ago. Imagine that. And again, that's Mike Dell. And so he recorded a couple of these articles for us. And I thought what we'd do is play this in a two-parter. We'll do part one on this episode, and then we'll play the second one in the next show. Hopefully I won't forget. And so take it away, Mike Dell.
The eternal triangle. In every airplane, something, either a human or a black box, must resolve the problem of the wind. Whether it is done by a human navigator or a collection of computer-based electronic gadgets, getting from point A to point B is still largely an exercise in basic geometry. It is a problem almost as old as travel itself. Point A is the starting place. Whether it be the Spanish port of Palos in 1492, a World War II airfield in England, or a modern MAC base in the United States. Point B is the destination, be it the Indies or the New World, an industrial target in Germany, or some distant airbase in the Pacific Ocean. The problem is the wind, the moving mantle of air endlessly circling the Earth. To early explorers, it was both the source of power and the force that blew them off course. To flyers, it is the element which they move, and that, for good or ill, helps move them. A friendly tailwind speeds their flight, a hostile headwind slows their progress and gulps their precious fuel. A crosswind can send them miles out of their way, perhaps into a disaster. The trick that navigators have known for centuries is to steer slightly to the left or right of the destination so that the wind will push them back on the desired course. The question is, how much to the right or the left is enough? The answer is a technique called dead reckoning, or less formally, solving the wind triangle. It amounts to making a scale drawing of the trip to include a picture of the wind. All it takes is a piece of paper, a pencil, a ruler, and something to measure angles with, such as a protractor. Here's how it works. Make one dot and label it point A, your starting point. Draw a line from it in the direction you plan to go. Make it due north in this case to keep things simple. Now make a second dot 5 inches out on this line and label it point B, your destination. Again, to keep things simple, we'll say that the line represents 500 miles, 1 inch for every 100 miles. Next, decide how fast you'll be flying. Let's call it 100 miles an hour so we can get there in 5 hours. That's your airspeed. Incidentally, we don't know yet how fast you'll be flying over the ground. Now, draw the wind. Normally, you'd have to call the Weather Bureau to find out what it looks like, but we'll say it's blowing from the southeast at 25 miles an hour. Draw a line from point B in that direction. You can probably guess pretty much where it should go. If you want to be accurate, the angle is 135 degrees north towards the lower right-hand corner of your paper. Now you can see the direction of the wind, but you also want to know how much it will affect you. Remember that we figured out that you'd be out for about 5 hours and that the wind would be blowing at 25 miles an hour. 5 hours worth of wind will total 125 miles. You must measure 1.25 inches along the wind line and make a third dot. Call that point C. Note the wind is blowing from point C to point B. However, not the other way around. You can draw a little arrow on it to remind you. Now draw a third line from point A to point C. Admittedly, you don't want to go there, but point C is where you want to aim the airplane. So why head for a place you don't want to go? Because while you're flying toward imaginary point C, the wind will be pushing you to the left, and you'll actually be moving dutifully along the line AB to your destination. Your drawing can tell you something else too. Look at the wind line, C to B. While it is pushing you slightly to the left, it is also pushing you slightly from behind. That means you'll be traveling a little faster than 100 miles an hour that you figured. Instead of taking 5 hours to reach point B, you'll probably make it in about 4.25. This time, the wind is a friendly force. Anyway, you now know how to get from A to B in the shortest route. Well, that's not exactly how a professional navigator would do it. He or she would use an aerial chart, a circular slide rule, and approach the thing a little differently. There are some calculations involved, compensating for compass errors and weather changes, for example, but it gives you the general idea of dead reckoning. It's a very old approach and still basic to the whole process of navigation. One way or another, navigators still have to know the same basic things: where they are starting, where they are going, and which way they have to aim so that the wind won't send them somewhere else. Something, whether it's a nervous human or a dispassionate black box, forever solving and then resolving the ancient puzzle of the wind triangle.
Very good. Speaking of wind, we see that Captain Al is in the chat room. Welcome.
Well timed.
Yes.
You heard him in the chat room? Yeah.
Hi, Captain Al.
Hi, Captain Al. Yeah, it's windy in the chat room. So I hope that everybody was paying attention to what Mike just read, and because there's gonna be a test.
Ooh, pop quiz. Excellent.
Yeah. So actually, I'm making that up. There's not going to be a test. Anyway, thanks, Mike. The next one that he sent in was called The Art of Navigation. We'll play that on next week's show, whenever that is. Could be next week, maybe not.
2 weeks. You decide.
Yeah, by the way, I should mention that the next couple of weeks going to be traveling to the UK, and I will have the recording gear with me, and our intention is to record a show. I'm just not sure if it's going to be just one while I'm over there or two or what, but it'll be a very dynamic situation, I'm sure.
Excellent.
All right. Perhaps another installment of the APG in Nick's garden.
You never know.
Oh, yes.
You never know. Okay. Thanks, Mike. And again, all the links to his podcasts, his World Studio podcast, Podcast Help Desk, and Fast Food History podcast will be in the show notes.
Yeah, I've just subscribed this very second to Podcast Help Desk, so I'm looking forward to listening to my first.
Excellent.
And fast food. Oh, I forgot the name of it already. I just subscribed, but I'm off the page. What
Fast
was
Food
it? Fast
History,
Food
I think.
History podcast? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm interested in.
Okay. Now we move on to Nick. Not this Nick right here, not one of the APG crew, but Nick, well, I don't know what Nick's last name is here. Let me see if I can figure it out. It is Nick Camacho. He sent in some feedback, and he says, "Hi, guys. Just listened to APG 329 and had a couple of thoughts on the Bonanza crash covered from 2016. It's a bit longer, but includes a bit of discussion about a more recent crash of a similar nature. I've included a link to the advisory circular that I reference, as well as a couple of accident reports for the accident discussed. And those links will be in the show notes. And again, this is Nick Camacho from Air Capital. And the audio with his wonderful feedback is coming up right now. Oh, before I do that, the Bonanza crash that he's talking about, we discussed, it was the one where the guy was taking off when another aircraft was landing in the opposite direction, and then he kind of prematurely tried to get the Bonanza airborne, and then kind of went off to the side and crashed into a hangar.
Hi, APG crew. This is Nick from Wichita, the Air Capital. I just wanted to touch on a couple of items regarding uncontrolled airports and operations regarding uncontrolled airports after the chat you guys did about the Bonanza crash on takeoff, I think back in 2016 in Arkansas. I just wanted to, a couple things kind of got me about that one. First of all, obviously watching the video is pretty tough, and it reminds me, anytime you see an airplane like that, it reminds me of the Bob Hoover, saying that you have to fly the airplane as far into the crash as possible. And what he meant by that is always maintaining control of the aircraft, keeping the aircraft under positive control. So you don't want the airplane to depart in a stall or in a spin or something where you're hitting the ground at whatever attitude you end up in. When I look at the video of that Bonanza, he was obviously in a tough situation, trying to evade the opposite direction traffic, and obviously hindsight's 20/20. But he got the airplane in a situation where he wasn't able to control it. He wasn't able to control his impact with the ground, and he would have been better off. Even if he would have gone off to one side of the runway, and it's such a hard call to make in the heat of the moment, because you're going to tear up the airplane and usually lose the airplane. But he would have been better off going off to one side, even if it meant pulling the throttle, just anticipating basically a skidding failure off into the little infield area on either side of the runway, but keeping the wings level, keeping the energy that he's dissipating into the ground lower, with kind of a skidding off runway incident, as opposed to getting the nose up high, stalling the airplane, and kind of losing control to where he no longer had any impact on the outcome of the incident. That was my first thought. The other thing I was just going to mention is, I don't know how well versed the listeners are in uncontrolled airport operations. I know Steph has touched on it a couple times. But I was just going to real quick mention that the FAA just in March of this year actually updated the advisory circular where they provide a lot of guidance on uncontrolled airport operations. That advisory circular is AC 90-66B. And basically what it does is it touches on what's regulatory versus advisory. The FAA has regulations, and then they provide advisory guidance that is not regulatory in nature, which is what they say, but is generally a good idea. And a great example of that is how the traffic patterns work at uncontrolled airports. All uncontrolled airports have traffic patterns. The majority of them are, they're all rectangles based around the runway. So the runway and departure is going to be, you're basically on takeoff, and then as soon as you're off the ground, you're basically in what's called the upwind leg of the traffic pattern. When you pass the end of the runway and you turn 90 degrees, you're now in the crosswind leg. The next 90-degree turn puts you in the downwind leg. That's the long leg opposite the runway. Next 90-degree turn puts you on the base leg. That's the leg where you are going perpendicular to the runway right before you turn what's called final, the last leg where you're lined up with the runway coming into land. So that advisory circular, like I said, it defines traffic patterns, gives you little tidbits of information like the base leg should be set up to where you're on approximately a 45-degree angle from the end of the runway. And a regulatory piece of information is that the traffic pattern is published and defined for either left traffic or right traffic, which means you're making left turns or right turns. And that information is regulatory in nature. So if you're flying at an airport that has a standard traffic pattern, so there's nothing noted on the charts or in the AFD, you have to make left-hand turns. The traffic pattern is left-hand traffic. Some airports, for airspace reasons or noise abatement reasons, may have right-hand traffic, which means you'll be making right-hand turns, and that's notated with an RP on the sectional, and you are required to make right-hand turns. You cannot show up to an airport and choose to make left-hand turns if it has a right-hand pattern, because that's regulatory or a regulation. However, how you enter the traffic pattern, the information given by the FAA is advisory in nature. So the FAA, the most desired entry into a traffic pattern is a 45-degree entry to the downwind. So basically you're flying towards the airport on a 45-degree angle, and you're going to be turning into the downwind leg or that long leg opposite the runway. They also talk about midfield entries, what they call the midfield entry, which you fly over the airport and then you do a 225-degree teardrop onto the downwind, or the midfield alternate entry. And this is the one that I use most often at the uncontrolled airport I'm based at, due to some of the airspace restrictions we have around, which is fly over the airport at pattern altitude and then enter the downwind from that basically 90-degree entry coming across the top of the airport. Some people who don't do a lot of training at uncontrolled airports or are not real familiar with pattern entries may not be aware of that, the midfield entry, but I really like it because you're coming over the airport. It gives you a really good opportunity to look down at the runway at both ends of the runway, at both run-up areas, taxiways, and then also directly in front of you, you have good view of the downwind leg and the base leg. And it really, in my opinion, it gives you the best view of all of the action on the airport. Now, if you are only taught the 45-degree entry, you may not know to look for the downwind or for the midfield entry traffic, and so that can get kind of dicey, I suppose. But now with this new advisory circular, the FAA has actually published that midfield entry approach as a alternative acceptable practice. Straight-in approaches are legal because you're not entering the traffic pattern, is what this advisory circular says. And that's mostly jets. I try to avoid that. But But if you're a jet flying directly towards, basically on like a 30-mile final, what it would end up being, you can fly straight in and land on the runway. You don't have to enter the traffic pattern. But you have to be aware that at an uncontrolled airport, you may have Nordo airplanes operating without radios. You may have all sorts of things happening. And the Nordo is another good point that Steph made. Radio communications are important, but they're not required at uncontrolled airports. I have a Beech Debonair, which is very similar to the accident airplane in Arkansas. It's a 4-seat complex airplane, moves pretty fast. I have 2 radios. I have an audio panel. I can switch back and forth between radios, so it's fairly well-equipped airplane as far as comms are concerned. My dad has a Luscombe 8A, which is a no electronics airplane, so we have to hand prop it. It doesn't have a starter. We do have a handheld radio in it that I use all the time. So I say all the time, probably 98% of the time. There have been days when it either doesn't function or it isn't charged or runs out of battery. But I'm always attempting to use the radio. I never make a choice not to use the radio, but it's not required. So that gives you the traffic pattern geometry and the radio communications kind of give you redundant built-in safeguards when you're entering the area for operations in an uncontrolled airport. I wanted to go over all that real quick because there was a similar accident here a little more recently, back in April. It involved a Cessna 150 and a citation. It's at Marion Municipal Airport in Indiana. There are 2 runways there, 15, which I think, I didn't look up the reciprocals, but I think that'd be 1533. And then 2204. There's a 150, Cessna 150 on the ground getting ready to take off, runway 15. Meanwhile, there was a Cessna citation coming in to land on runway 22. And another quick point, this airport has signs at both ends of the runway saying, basically, if you're on the end of runway 15, you cannot see traffic on runway 22 and vice versa. Now, the citation was making a straight in landing to runway 22. Cessna 150 was taking off runway 15. I believe the winds were maybe 140 at 8 or 9. I'll try to include a link to the accident report so Captain Jeff and the crew can look at that. But unfortunately, the citation, as it was clearing through the intersection point of the 2 runways, the 150 clipped the tail end of the citation, and the 150 cartwheeled and caught on fire. And unfortunately, all of the people in neither of the people in the 150 survived. The unfortunate thing is you look at the events that led up to this, and you have a citation, which is a fast-moving airplane, kind of hard to see, landing at an uncontrolled airport where there pretty obviously is the wind is pretty obviously favoring one runway. He's not utilizing that runway, did not fly any of the prescribed traffic pattern procedures, and he did not recall, the accident report says he did not recall making a radio call on Unicom, but did utilize his onboard TCAS, or traffic collision avoidance system, while on approach. Which, for me as a small pilot, really frustrates me, because I have no access to that information, and him having that information in his cockpit does me no good to allow me to act upon any sort of incursion we might have. So I just thought I'd kind of bring this to light to the crew, and I'll try to include a couple of links to this accident and see what you guys think. Thanks a lot for the show.
All right. Thanks a lot for your feedback. And as you mentioned, links to the accident report involving the Cessna 150 and the citation jet will be in today's show notes.
I was just curious about signal squares, which are on UK airfields and indicate the traffic pattern direction. And had it been laid down on a UK airfield, then and everyone should follow that same traffic pattern direction, this accident might not have happened. Excuse me. I'm talking about the Bonanza now. And Steph, you said that you do actually have something similar at US airfields.
Yeah, we call them segmented circles, and they're at uncontrolled fields. And usually it is where the windsock is. So if you locate the windsock, around the windsock, there's a circle drawn around it, but it's got little dashes around it. But then off of the dashes, it shows the location of the runways, and it actually indicates the direction of the traffic pattern for that runway.
So are people obliged to follow that direction, that pattern direction?
Yep.
Okay, so who was at fault in this particular, or was there not a
Now I
segmented
can't
circle at
remember
this airfield, I wonder?
Now I'm forgetting the exact details because I've
Yeah.
gotten so far away from it. But if it is published, if it says in the AFD which traffic pattern you're supposed to be using, then it's whoever was going against the published traffic pattern.
Yeah, interesting. I'd love to know that. I wonder if any of our readers or listeners know.
I bet they do.
Yeah, we're bound to find out then.
Yes, we are. All right. Excellent. Thanks again, Nick, for that. Both Nick right there in the show and Nick, the feedback guy, in the air capital, Wichita, Kansas. There's a discussion now in the chat room regarding my spectacles.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite a spectacle. Yeah.
Wearing
so
different ones.
Well, I had these are the glasses I wear because they're progressive lenses, but I normally don't wear them on a show because I'm usually, I just need the single, what do they call that? Single vision.
Yeah.
And so I remembered when I took a break listening to that audio feedback. Oh, that's right. I forgot to put on my show glasses. And apparently Ivor prefers the progressive lenses. Liz prefers the ones that don't have rims.
I think you should put one up on your top of your head and wear the other pair. I could do this. You could do that. Yes, that would. Yeah.
It's a good luck, I think.
We call you 8 eyes now instead of 4 eyes.
8 eyes.
Ah, all right.
But if 4 are good, then 8 is better.
That's the way it works.
Makes you more like a fly.
And if you're going to click on that link that Micah just put in the show notes or the chat room, make sure that you hold down or right click, or if you're on a Windows machine, the control key. If you're on a Mac, the command key to click on it, right? I think that's the way it works. Okay, here we go. Moving on to Tarquin. Is that the way I would pronounce that? Tarquin?
Tarquin.
Okay, Tarquin.
Yes.
Trip to Blighty. Okay, this is interesting. Hello, all you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed APG people. I'm a medium-term listener and first-time provider of feedback. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tarquin Wilberforce Singen Snodgrass.
St. John.
I'm sorry. St. John Snodgrass. I hail from this fair isle that contains the popular airfield at Farnborough. This is, I believe, your chosen destination. A fine choice, if I may say so. I understand that they hold some sort of midsummer celebration of flying apparatus. If you choose this as a destination for your vacation, as you would say, may I offer some handy hints and tips to help you whilst you are guests of ours. First of all, when greeting people of any social standing, we prefer a firm handshake. This transmits all you need to the person you are meeting. It says, "I'm pleased to meet you, but I do not wish to take this any further." I understand through the television that some countries encourage other forms of greetings. It's well documented that our French and Italian friends almost engage in relationships on meeting each other. The less said about that, the better. Now, it's been brought to my attention that you lovely Americans partake in something called high fives and pump fists, or fist pumps, whichever it is. We will have none of this nonsense on our fair land.
Quite right.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. Now that we have got the formalities out of the way, we must find a way of communicating with each other. In the United Kingdom, we talk to each other. Not shout, but talk. Nor we should be able to fumble through, as I understand you chaps use something very similar to the Queen's English. So I will endeavor to point out any potential pitfalls. There are certain words that are spelt one way and pronounced another, the correct way. I'm going to read that sentence again. There are certain words that are spelt one way and pronounced another, the correct way. One such word is route, a way to navigate from one point to another, but it's pronounced route. A route, a route, as you may say it, is in fact a woodworking term. I also believe that a router in your country is an internet box thing. We call them a router, but spell it router, which is R-O-U-T-E-R. This may seem confusing, but nobody said it was easy. Effort is required. Now, in this golden aisle, alongside our roads, we have provision for pedestrians. We call this a pavement, not a sidewalk. Here, you may walk on our pavement straight ahead, not sideways, as your sidewalks suggest. A good thing, I'm sure you'll agree. Whilst on the subject of roads, our main intercity roads are called motorways, not freeways or highways. Good grief, what are you people on? Now, there is one word that will provide endless problems, and you will come across it time and time again. The offending word is borough. Yes, this little rascal will crop up all the time. Farnborough, Peterborough, Wellingborough. I could go on, but I'm worried for you. I have a simple answer for you. Be less American. No, excuse my flippancy. I'll try to help. If you replace the word borough with B-R-R-R, as if you're feeling cold, burr. Now, just pop farn in front of it, and bingo, you've got Farnborough. Just like that common wench in that popular film, you can now blend in seamlessly. Another word that constantly trips up brave travelers from the Americans is shire, as in Hampshire, Cambridgeshire, and, worst of all, Leicestershire. How do you help? How do I help you on this?
I'm not going to help Jeff. I'm just let him continue on.
No, I purposely. I've read through this before. I know.
Maybe the dog is laughing.
I think so.
Let's see. Okay, going back to Tarquin. How do I help you on this? I'm not sure I can. Some things are beyond mere mortals. Well, let's try. If you say share instead of shire,
sure.
Sure. Well, okay. He says it's like that share lady.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
Is that what it says right there?
It is. I didn't
say share instead of shire, Hampshire, just like that share lady. Cambridgeshire. Leicestershire. Sure. Now, we all know that you're looking at.
I would love to tell you it's Leicestershire.
No, don't.
Leicestershire.
Don't tell him what it actually is, please, Nick.
Or
just let him continue.
Leicestershire, as we now pronounce it. But you are looking at Leicestershire and saying, okay, wait. So it's hard to read this and pronounce it exactly the way he wants me to pronounce it. But anyway, so I'll try to help with this. Say Leicester, put it all together, and you've got Leicestershire. Okay, is that right? Leicestershire?
Yeah.
Closer.
Closer. How would you say it?
I was pulling your leg. Yeah, Leicestershire.
Leicestershire.
Leicestershire is the way most Americans pronounce it when they get.
You're saying it like a sheer, like a S-H-E-A-R.
Leicestershire. That's why I said share doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah. Well, this Tarkin guy is wrong then.
Tarkin.
Well, he might have a slightly, I don't know, a regional accent. He doesn't, it turns out, but since I know who Tarquin is.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
We know where you're from,
Tarquin. You might want to plug in your PC. Well, I thought I had. Oh, hang on.
Is he having a Windows update?
Yes.
Well, it might as well be. It's a Windows tablet.
Oh, Jeff. No,
yes.
Not in the middle of Leicestershire.
I know. I'm ruining the whole vibe.
Leicestershire.
Hey, Nige. How you doing? Taking a little break here because apparently the power cord for my Surface 3 tablet had pulled out of its socket.
Just an aside, how would you pronounce the sauce that you can put on like steaks or marinade things in?
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire, yeah.
Worcestershire sauce, yeah.
Yeah.
Worcestershire.
But it's spelled.
I pronounce it in the same way you'd say Windshire. So Leicestershire, Windshire.
Yeah.
Windshire,
Hampshire.
Leicestershire.
Well, I'm going to try some combination of all of those.
Good luck.
Yes.
Okay, back to Tarquin's. I'm assuming this will go through the delicate hands of executive producer Elizabeth. Excuse me whilst I stand up and salute at the mention of our queen's name. Now, I understand she is a Canadian, and so will have a greater grasp of the English language than you American types. You can go to her for extra help. Also, I believe one of your presenting chaps claims to be English, and so may be of some limited help to you.
Well, only half is English.
So at this
limited.
juncture, I must bid you farewell and a safe journey to the cradle of civilization. Oh, you're staying in Liss, aren't you? I withdraw that last comment.
Oh, how rude.
Wow. Toodle pip for now. That's what she said. P.S. If any of you are interested in what I look like, and I cannot blame you, just do a Google search for images of Jacob Rees-Mogg. Then imagine a more muscular and buff version of him. That'll be me.
Yeah, I've seen him. The buff, muscular bit, I think you have to take with a pinch of salt.
So you should all know that that was the name Tarquin is a alias of someone that we know very well here in the APG community. His name, Ivor.
Ivor the Tank Engine.
Yes, and he's in our chat room as well. Hello, Ivor.
Hi.
Hope I did some justice to that very, very entertaining piece and educational, thank you, piece of feedback. I'll practice. I'll practice.
It'd be better if you don't. It's more fun that way.
No, I think you guys get more amusement out of me mispronouncing everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, then I won't work on it. Let's see.
There's low expectations. It's okay.
Good. Well, you'll really enjoy this show.
For all of us. Nick excluded. I mean, let's be honest. They can't get any of our American pronunciations right either. So
that is true. That is true. But we don't. We don't belittle them for that, do we?
No. I don't think we did any of that when people came to like Pittsburgh
no, because we're nice.
Gosh.
We're nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we'll have to say about that. Well, you know what? I think this might be a good time for us to play this week's installment of Plain Tales by that wonderful storyteller, the Old Pilot, or the Old Pilot. And let's hear it now.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. An addendum. Since broadcasting the last Plain Tale, Murder on the Flight Deck, I found out that one of our longest and most valued listeners, Captain Steve Andress, was personally involved with part of the story. And I realized beforehand I would, of course, have reached out to Steve to make sure he was happy for me to tell the story. But since then, he and I have been in contact, and I'm glad to say that Steve wasn't upset that I told the tale. To fill in the gaps for those who are listening to this in isolation, my previous plain tale, entitled Murder on the Flight Deck, dealt with two incidents where a passenger attacked the pilots of an airliner in order to cause their own death. Very sadly, in the case that is linked to Steve's family, the suicidal passenger succeeded in his aims and caused the crash of Pacific Airlines Flight 733, killing everyone on board, including Ray Andress, the co-pilot, and Steve's father. In Steve's own words, "I was surprised to hear it, but I wasn't upset by it. As I said in a message during the podcast, if the story was to be told, I'm glad it came from you. You always do a fantastic job with your tales." About 4 years ago, I heard for the first time the ATC communication from my father saying that they had been shot. That was quite unsettling. The crash, my mom calls it the accident, I think, to soften it for us kids, occurred when I was 2, and I don't have any memories of my father. My mother has said that when my father's flights would pass through San Jose, south of San Francisco, she would take us kids out to the airport to see him. I wanted to be a pilot for as long as I remember, I'm sure it was because of my father. He was a USAF RB-47 reconnaissance pilot. Now, for those who may not be familiar, the aircraft that Steve's father flew was the massive Boeing Stratojet, originally designed as a high-level, high-speed, strategic nuclear bomber. It was powered by 6 General Electric J-47 turbojets, 4 of which were mounted in pairs inboard and the remaining 2 outboard. Its main undercarriage were 2 bogies, one steerable mounted fore and the other mounted aft, bicycle style, and they retracted into the fuselage. Plus they had retractable outriggers mounted under the inboard engine mounts. It was a gleaming, sleek and futuristic design, straight from a kid's comic, with the highly swept, shoulder-mounted wings and a large fighter-style bubble canopy. The pilot sat in tandem, with the co-pilot doubling up as a rear gunner using the remote radar-directed M24 tail cannons. The third crew member also doubled up as a navigator and, in the recce version, a photographer operating the 11 cameras that could be fitted. The RB-47s came the closest of all the variants to being in combat. Some missions required them to overfly the Soviet Union, and several were engaged by Soviet fighters. In one case, after a top-secret reconnaissance mission in the Kola Peninsula, a 4th Air Division 91st Strategic Reconnaissance Wing RB-47E flew over the Soviet Union. It was flying at high altitude, out of reach of the MiG-15s, but unknown to the USAF intelligence, some MiG-17s had been stationed in the area that were able to intercept the intruder. The Stratojet was chased by several Soviet MiG-17 fighters attempting to destroy the aircraft with their guns over Soviet and then Finnish airspace. Although sustaining damage, the crew managed to escape over Sweden back to their home base at RAF Fairford in England. The RB-47's high speed and combat range were crucial. At least 5 of them were fired on, and despite returning fire with their tail guns, 3 were brought down. Going back to Steve's story, he received his commission through ROTC, so like him, I was going to do Air Force ROTC as well. However, when I mentioned this to a friend in the 7th grade, this was shortly after Vietnam, he said that the only ones guaranteed a pilot slot were the Air Force Academy graduates. So I went there. After pilot training, I flew the KC-135 out of Okinawa, then transferred to the RC-135. I didn't pick recon because of my father. The RC provided real-world operations in a peacetime Air Force. I thought it would be more interesting, and it was. I flew RC operations out of Shemya, near the western tip of the Aleutian Islands, while based in Alaska. Later, I operated out of Kadena in Okinawa, Athens, and Mildenhall in the UK, while based in Nebraska. I'm now a 737 captain for a major airline. I also flew the MD-80 before upgrading. As you mentioned in the plane tale, the captain's daughter, Julie, flew commercially for many years, and she retired from Northwest. She currently performs at air shows in her T-34. I went up with her once, and she let me do a barrel roll. One of my sisters became a flight attendant. Both she and Julie flew together once, years ago, on a Hughes Air West F-27. Julie, the pilot, and my sister, the flight attendant. You also mentioned that the shooter took out an insurance policy from a machine in the airport. My mother, working in conjunction with ALPA, testified before a congressional committee with the goal of banning those machines. In the end, some states did ban them, I believe. I'm often asked how my mother felt about me pursuing a flying career. I was fortunate that my mother saw that this crash was the result of a terrible crime and not because of an unsafe industry. She was always supportive of my flying goals. I've listened to all 330 APG shows and even The Catholic Pilot. I've learned a lot, and I'm a better pilot and captain as a result. I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to do what I love. Well, thanks, Steve, for sharing your story with us and providing a more intimate view of an awful incident. In the 60s and 70s, the proliferation of flight insurance kiosks at airports was implicated in a number of incidents, such as the one involving Steve's father on Flight 773, and his mother, in conjunction with the Airline Pilots Association, was instrumental in making a strong case for their removal. For those listeners from a slightly different era who aren't familiar with these machines, they were positioned in airport terminals by insurance companies, and for a handful of quarters, they would automatically dispense an insurance policy for your flight. Selling flight insurance wasn't a new thing even back then. In 1911, one could buy aviation-related coverage from Lloyd's of London called a White Wings policy. And by 1919, the Travelers Insurance Company introduced insurance which offered death and disability coverage for a passenger. Called a trip accident ticket insurance, it ran from the day of purchase until 4 a.m. the next day. The very first of these aero tickets, as they were called, was purchased by President Wilson for $5, with a possible payout of $5,000. Even the Wright brothers were customers of this coverage. This type of insurance grew and was sold from booths at the airport. But after the Second World War, demand grew to the point where staff behind kiosks couldn't cope, and vending machines were introduced to cover the passengers' needs. However, the perception that an aircraft was an easy target for those who wanted a claim on these policies persisted, and it became a motivation for appalling crimes and mass murder. In the United States, the event that brought this all to a head was perpetrated by a man called John Gilbert Graham. Born in Denver early in 1932, Graham was the child of Daisy Graham and her second husband. Nicknamed Jack, Graham was Daisy's second child, as she already had a daughter from her first marriage. Jack Graham was born in the height of the Depression, and when he was 5, his father died from pneumonia. In desperate poverty, his mother's only solution, as was fairly common at the time, was to send young Jack to an orphanage. A few years later, Daisy married for a third time, but her new husband only lived for a short while. She used her inheritance to become a successful businesswoman, but despite her newfound wealth, she didn't rescue Jack from the orphanage, leaving him abandoned there. In 1954, when Jack was 22, there was a reunion of sorts, but hardly surprisingly, they had a pretty poor relationship and were often witnessed arguing and shouting at each other. Daisy was, by then, running a drive-in restaurant, and Jack worked for her, but that business failed after a suspicious gas explosion caused severe damage. However, an insurance policy that Jack had taken out on the restaurant paid out. The police knew about Jack, though, since he already had a criminal record for embezzlement, forgery, and illegal transport of whiskey. Jack Graham plotted to murder his mother, and for a blueprint, he followed, almost identically, the case of a Canadian murderer. Albert Guay, on the 9th of September 1949, murdered 23 people aboard a Canadian Pacific Airlines DC-3 Flight 108 in Quebec. He was stuck in a loveless marriage, and because of the staunchly Catholic divorce laws in Quebec at the time, he knew he couldn't get a divorce. With his wife flying from Montreal to Quebec City, he put a dynamite time bomb in her suitcase and then, on the day of the flight, took out flight insurance worth over $100,000 in today's money. His motive wasn't purely the money, though. He wanted to be free to marry his mistress, a 19-year-old waitress. He planned for the explosion to occur over the St. Lawrence River so that the evidence would be lost in the water, but a small departure delay meant that the aircraft's destruction happened over land. His conviction was the first proven incidence of sabotaging a passenger flight for criminal purposes. Albert, along with Ruest, the clockmaker who constructed the bomb, and Ruest's sister, who purchased the dynamite, were all sentenced to death by hanging. Albert's last words were, "At least I die famous." Ruest's sister was the 13th and last woman to be hanged in Canada. 6 years later, Jack Graham succeeded in building a suitable dynamite bomb and secreted it in his mother's suitcase. At the airport, he purchased flight insurance worth over $340,000 in today's money, and being the sole beneficiary in her will, if his plan to murder his mother succeeded, he was destined to be a very wealthy man. The aircraft, a United Airlines DC-6, departed Denver bound for Portland with 39 passengers and 5 crew members on board. The last call the aircraft made was over the Denver beacon. In the Denver tower, the controller's attention was grabbed by a bright flash that illuminated the 10,000-foot cloud base. Suspecting the worst, they checked in all the aircraft under their control. All but Flight 629 replied, and then the phone calls started coming in. Searchers who reached the crash site quickly determined that all on board had perished in the destruction of the DC-6. The fires were so intense that they burned for 3 days. The FBI conducted a very thorough investigation, and through chemical analysis and painstaking examination of the debris, they concluded that a dynamite bomb had been used. Suspicion immediately fell on those who might gain the most from the deaths of the passengers and the crew, and with the evidence mounting against him, Jack Graham finally confessed. Despite the number of victims, there was no law covering the situation, so Graham was charged with a single count of murder, that of his mother. He was convicted, and a few days later he was executed in a gas chamber. Before his death, he said, "As far as feeling remorse for these people, I don't. I can't help it. Everybody pays their way and takes their chances. That's just the way it goes." In the aftermath of the destruction of Flight 629, and as a result of the campaign by Steve's mother with the help of ALPA, the state of Colorado banned the use of insurance vending machines, and airport insurance sales remained legal only so long as a person sold it. In the end, the death of the insurance machines really came about because of the increasing safety of air travel and the ever-diminishing chance of one's demise on a flight. But I have to really admire Steve's mother for her efforts in the campaign. I also admire Steve for his service to his country and for the success of his flying career. It started in the most difficult of circumstances, and I'm sure that the APG crew and our happy band of listeners will join me in wishing you and your family the very best for the future.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Steve, for the really nice letter and your very, very kind words. We took that very. What am I trying to say? Yeah.
To heart. It was
to
very
heart.
generous.
Very much to heart. Thank you.
So we really appreciate it.
Interesting about the flight insurance issue. There was a discussion about that while we were listening to the Plain Tale in the chat room regarding the fact that I believe here in the U.S. those things have been abolished or banned, but apparently not so in other parts of the world.
No, I believe there are some modern versions in Japan, for example. And Captain Al said he'd seen some, I think. Was it Captain Al? Looking back now. But anyway, some people have said they are having a bit of a resurgence. But quite honestly, with air travel being so safe, I'm going... the chances of you getting a payout, it's just a complete waste of money. And most of us have life insurance anyway, of the normal kind, which will probably cover you in the majority of cases. So I'm just wondering why they would want to. When they were at their peak in the United States, the revenue they were generating for the insurance company was something in the region to 1,000 times the amount of payout that they were having to pay out to people who perished. So it was, that was an incredible money earner. It was making many, many millions of dollars, and they were paying out a very small amount in comparison. So, it was, even back then when air travel wasn't as safe, it was still what I would consider something of a scam.
Oh, definitely. And I don't know. If I'm looking at someone buying an insurance policy right before they get on a flight, I'm feeling pretty suspicious of them as it is.
Yeah,
It's just,
I would wonder about their
I'm
motivation.
not getting on that flight with them. Why are they taking out a separate insurance policy?
Especially if it's the pilots.
Especially if pilots.
Yeah.
I'll take the bus on this one.
Yeah, I mean, we do take passenger profiling quite seriously in most flights, in most airlines, in most countries, because of the dangers that might be involved with unstable passengers. So, or passengers with weird motivations. So, if you go and buy insurance, it's how can that not be a problem? I don't understand.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, enjoyed your tale, sir.
Well, that was all Steve's doing, really. He wrote such a nice letter. It was
Yes.
just so easy to turn it into a little story.
Absolutely.
And I love those airplanes that his father flew. I mean, when you look at one, you need to pull a picture up of one, everybody. You need to just Google the B-47 and look up. It's like a massive fighter plane. I mean, it's got these hugely swept wings, all these engines, and then this amazing fighter pilot's bubble canopy on top. It must have been so much fun to sit up there and fly that thing. I love that his father flew that in the USAF.
Yes. All right. We're going to skip a few of these and skip over to number 14, Glenn Towler from that North Island, the South Shore of the North Island. I think I got that right, geographically speaking. And he sent us some audio feedback, so let's take a listen.
Hello, my fellow APG syndrome sufferers. It's Glenn from Wellington, New Zealand, with some feedback. Looking forward to Oshkosh again. I have a meetup planned at 10 a.m. on the Thursday at the Brown Arch. So if you're in the Oshkosh area and to be there, do please turn up. It'd be great to see you. Really looking forward to seeing everyone, of course. All my good friends like Jennifer, Dispatcher Mike, of course, Halal, and Dave Abbey. Yes, good to see him again. That's it, really. Thinking. Well, actually, I'll talk a little bit about what Mike was saying in a previous podcast about windows in aircraft. Really need to keep them. Don't really want video screens, really. I mean, I was on a flight last year from LA to Atlanta on the 757-300 window seat, of course. And I think it was only 2 window shades were actually open on the flight. It was in the daytime. The views were just wonderful, fantastic, clouds and everything, and most of the people, all they wanted to do was stare at the little screens and the seat back in front of them. So it's really quite sad that so many people don't look out the window. I'm sure I've said this before, but so saying again that we really need to get people looking out the windows and stop staring at the little screens. But anyway, that's what people want to do. So can you do? Anyway, yes. Blue skies, tailwinds, and see you all at Oshkosh. Glenn out.
Yeah, good luck with that, Glenn.
Absolutely.
I think we're beyond the point of no return with the little screens and lack of attention and interest in looking outside and seeing what the world has to offer.
As you said, it's what the people want.
Yep. I hope you have a great trip over, and your meetups are all fantastic, which I'm sure they will be. And I just wish that the APG crew were able to join the gang up at Oshkosh this year. But as I mentioned before, we're not ruling out that that could be a possibility for the next year.
I'm going to make it there one of these years. I promise.
Yes.
Eventually.
It's a great place to go. I've only been there like a very brief period of time, just a few hours on a Wednesday afternoon of last year's show. But it was worth every minute. All right. And we also want to skip to 16. We're doing this to make sure that we get all of these in today's show. And this, you'll remember Corey had written to us about the fact that, well, he's just always updating us on his progress of his flight training, etc. And he sent this to us as an update. Corey Cave here, aka Pipeline Pilot Guy turned Regional Pilot Guy. I think my last feedback got lost on its way to you, but here I am with a big update on a new and improved phone. Dr. Steph gets the reference.
Indeed. I'm glad you got a new phone. That last one was, the screen was having some issues. We'll just
cracked maybe?
Yeah, and it was displaying some odd colors.
Oh, okay. Good.
Made
Well,
for some interesting looking photos.
we're glad that you have a new and improved phone, Corey. And I'm sorry about the fact that your last feedback got lost. I don't recall seeing it, but oh well.
Did he forget to include the $20 note?
Oh, you know, yeah, I didn't see that. That might have been why it ended up in the trash bin.
You better go search that trash bin. There might be $20 there. You never know.
Oh, shoot. Okay, I'll do that. He continues. Well, I passed my check ride on April 26th, and I am officially a first officer on the Embraer 145.
Woohoo! Well,
Yeah,
well done.
find the audio track that I should have already been ready to play. Here we go. Oh, you got a short period. A little short
It's an
applause.
abbreviated applause.
Yeah, here, let's give him
There you go.
one.
Well, perhaps. It sounds like someone falling down the stairs.
That's not a very good applause.
Okay.
Corey, we really are excited for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
we have to do better than that.
At least
Here we
Nick and I are. Not sure about Jeff.
Hooray! Ah, that's better. Yay!
There. How about that?
Better.
Okay, I don't know what happened to the fades that I'd set up on all those, but apparently that's not working.
Fix it in post. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll fix it in post. Anyway, congratulations. And I really am happy for you, Corey, regardless of what Steph says. Let's see. Fast forward to Father's Day. I surprised my father, a fellow listener. Hello, Father. With a ticket on a Nashville turn I was flying. It was an amazing feeling to have the captain let me make the PA standing in the cabin to the passengers. I wish I'd filmed it. I even got a round of applause. I'm not going to try the applause thing again. And greased both landings, I might add. The first thing my dad said after it was, "Wow, that was like a regular airline flight." But I knew what he meant. In addition, the CBS Nightly News finally showed my interview. Somehow, it went from an hour to not even a full second. But it's okay.
Sounds about right for evening news.
You get more time on this show, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Well, just send us a video and we'll play it. Caught me off guard when I walked into the crew room and everyone was looking at me. Even got video from my ground school classmates on Canadian overnights who saw it air up there. I will provide a link so we can all enjoy the flash of my face. I didn't see a link in here though from that video. So Corey, if you're listening, or Corey's dad, if you're listening, tell Corey to send me the link to the video so we can, play it on the show. But do you see that in there? Anybody?
No, just the regular link to the actual feedback.
Yeah, and then the picture there as well. So anyway, sorry for the long feedback, but this is not long feedback, trust me. But last three things. 1, What do you all think about the Boeing purchase of Embraer? 2. Piedmont Airlines finally retired its last Dash 8 on July 4th. There is a good documentary produced by Piedmont on their social media and YouTube. Truly an end of an era. And number 3, Captain Nick, I jump seated on a A321, and I'm not saying I'm converted, but it does have its upsides. In closing, I am glad to be where I am and truly know what it feels like to love what you do and to count the minutes until the next time I get to fly. 130 hours in just 2 months doesn't feel like work anymore. Well, keep up the good work, and I hope to see y'all on the line. First Officer Corey Cave. And he included a photo. Maybe I can...
it's a great photo.
Play that. Yeah, I mean, so hang in there, everybody. Again, this will all be edited. Maybe. And dun, 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 dun. Picture at the bottom. Okay. I'm going to hit that button, and then I'm going to go over here to this. Share my screen. Fascinating stuff this is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Can we see that?
Yep, I can see it.
All right. There is First Officer Corey sitting in the right seat, and that has to be First Officer Corey's dad. And he didn't mention his name, so I keep calling him Corey's dad.
Isn't that brilliant? What a great picture.
Yeah.
Love
very
it.
Nice. He must be a proud man. Okay. Back.
What I was going to say, just in reference to the, excuse me, the Dash 8 retirement, that was big news here in Charlotte because Piedmont has a large hub here in Charlotte, and they did operate quite a few Dash 8s into and out of this airport. So, just for what it's worth.
I remember seeing a bunch of them at Charlotte.
And I flew on them a bunch going out when I lived out in the eastern part of North Carolina because they operated, at that time, the majority of the flights out to Pitt Greenville, and I think for quite a while, they were only operating the Dash 8. It's a great airport. If you live out there, you can go anywhere you want as long as it's Charlotte. And on any airline you want to, as long as it's on a American Airlines regional carrier.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Did they ever get that all sorted out? Was it not Piedmont, PSA?
Oh, PSA with their
computer glitch?
Computer issues? I have not heard anything recently, so assuming it's all back to status quo.
Okay.
We'll see.
Excellent. And then we talked earlier in the news section about the Boeing purchase of Embraer. So we got that one checked off. And yeah, the A321, I think I mentioned the same thing. I mentioned the same thing on a earlier show when I was deadheading back from Los Angeles a couple of months ago. Very comfortable cockpit. Again, I'm pretty sure that I'll never be trained or fly on that jet. But it was very comfortable, and I guess it does have its upsides. So as long as the upsides aren't down, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thanks, Corey, again for the update. And yeah, make sure you send a link to that CBS special where we got a full second of your face.
It's your 1 second of fame. They've cut it down. There's been cutbacks. It's no longer your 15 seconds.
Yeah, 15 seconds to 1 or 15 minutes. That's right, to 1 second.
There's been some cutbacks. Yeah.
Airtime is not cheap. No. Come on. It's amazing how, you get interviewed by something. I had a lady interview me in Boston, the local PBS affiliate, WGBH, and she wanted my opinion and expertise regarding runway incursions up at Boston Logan. And we must have spent, I don't know, over an hour talking, and she recorded the whole thing. And then the final product, I think I was on for maybe 5 to 10 seconds. So,
wow. It was an awful lot of effort for nearly nothing.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm so delighted Corey likes the 321. I just would love to hear when he flies on a 330, or better still a 340, because now that Captain Al's gone, I can say that a 321 is really a little short, ugly effer.
That's actually a longer, ugly, whatever.
Well, compared with a proper airplane. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you weren't comparing to the A3 18, 19, 20?
No, I was
No,
comparing
the
it
other
to
way
a
around.
proper airplane.
Proper.
Just checking.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Let's do number 15 since I'm in that area of my Evernote notebook. And this is everybody really appreciates plain tales, and it's not a surprise at all. And in Facebook, a place that I don't travel too often, but fortunately Nick and Liz do. And they let me know when people have nice things to say, and a lot of nice stuff for plain tales. And I'll just read you a couple of them here. John Pelchat says, I'm a longtime suffering victim of APG syndrome. The APG is the best palliative therapy for APG syndrome. Did I say that right?
Palliative.
Steph? Palliative therapy for APG syndrome. What does palliative mean?
It means when there's no cure and you're just providing comfort care.
Oh, okay. Very appropriate. Okay. But when you don't have 3 hours and are loath to stop in the middle, Captain Nick's plain tales are that short rescue inhaler for all of us sufferers.
Oh, the rest of us use it for a chance to go to the toilet.
Well, to each their own.
That's right. Sean Fowler says, one of my favorite things when I'm driving to work to go flying, I'm either listening to the most recent APG episode, or if that's been completed, then I'm diving back into the old plain tales. Thank you very much for all the superb work you put into these, Nick. Christopher Keys says, you're a masterful storyteller, Captain Nick, by any standard. Lovely blend of history, humor, and thought-provoking pathos. But how do you find the time to research, record, edit, fly, photograph, and edit, and drink each and every week? It's miraculous.
Yeah, well, the good thing is I'm just not doing a lot of flying at the moment.
He has a lot more time for all the other
It's done
stuff.
by the old
Exactly
curmudgeon.
right. But I have knocked out a quick plain tale on a New York, so it is possible to, combine the two.
He loves what he does. He has a passion for this stuff, and we are so glad that he does, and we're so glad that he's part of our team.
I thought it was just the old curmudgeon was doing some of the work.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that
Okay.
old curmudgeon guy has something to do with it.
Yeah.
And then Sue and Tony Damiano say, hi, Captain Nick. I've heard many of your tales previously, but somehow your unique way of telling them makes them so much more interesting. Keep up the great work. So
It's very, very kind, and I
that's
really
just a
appreciate
sampling.
all of that. That's so kind.
That's just a sampling of the many, many, many comments. I mean, almost every piece of feedback we get, plain tales, love it. Tell Nick, it's the best thing since sliced bread. So,
And we couldn't agree more.
Yep.
Truly.
So I was thinking to myself, we should probably have a special email address for those of you who want to contact Nick directly, and perhaps you have we get a lot of suggestions for future installments of Plain Tales. And for whatever reason, Nick may or may not agree that would be a good candidate for doing a Plain Tale, because I think there's some criteria there, right, Nick, as far as...
Yeah, I have to be able to turn it into a story that is just long enough, not too complicated. So it has to have just the right sort of level of content. And if I'm going to devote a day or two to doing it, I have to be able to engage with it. So what appeals to some people won't necessarily appeal to me, and they won't necessarily. A story may just be a short event that won't necessarily expand out, and perhaps I can't find enough information on it to make it interesting enough. So there are lots of things that might cause a suggestion to not quite make the grade, but I have followed a lot of ideas, and I'm always up for more.
And you always acknowledge the folks that kind of suggest.
Absolutely.
these.
When I can, remember.
Yeah,
I'm very poor at note keeping when it comes to that.
Hey, folks, tell you what, we get a lot of feedback from everyone out there, and sometimes it's a little overwhelming. But just to help us out a little bit, set up an email address, Plaintales, and you can spell it PLANETALES or Plain TAILS, if you'd like, at airlinepilotguy.com. So plaintales at airlinepilotguy.com, and that way we can kind of set aside those that are questions for us or comments regarding APG in general, or specifically to the plain tales.
Oh yeah, that'll be great, because with all the different social media avenues, I often lose things. So
yeah.
I think, well, I got a suggestion last week, and when the hell is that? And then I can never find it again.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I may have thrown it away.
Yes.
No. Oh, you weren't asking specifically, were you? Well, disregard that. I had nothing to do with it. That Liz must have done it.
Yeah, Liz threw it away. Yeah,
It's her fault.
Yeah,
Blame it on the producer.
She's not here to defend herself.
She's in the chat room. I think we might get a comment in a minute.
Disregard anything that Liz says in the chat room. How do I boot her out of there? Oh, never mind. Let's see.
She's got a spanner. You can't.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Shall we continue? I think we have another, 20 minutes or so remaining that we can do some more pieces of feedback here. Anything in particular any of you want to cover for sure, or shall I just
pick at random? Okay.
Let me take up from where we left off. Steve Hurst, the feedback regarding Rolls-Royce job cuts. This is my third or fourth feedback question since following the show, so feel free to tell me to shut up. Okay. Shut up. Let's move on to another one.
Shut up, Jeff.
Shut up. I know. I should get that. And right here.
Shut up, Jeff.
But it should. I need to make it. Shut up, Steve. Okay. Just kidding. I want to respond with a different perspective to comments made in APG 328 and 329 about the substantial job cuts announced by Rolls-Royce. Whilst the announcement of substantial job cuts might appear short-sighted, a knee-jerk reaction to pacify the shareholders and hugely unfair to the individuals impacted, I think there is more to it than that. Per my reading of the situation, a large proportion of these job cuts were something that should have happened sooner, to remove surplus jobs and remove layers of middle management to simplify the organization and make it more efficient. Instead, they waited until the Trent 1000 issues really started to hurt before they announced the restructure. It seems that the Trent 1000 issues proved to be the catalyst for the job losses, but it was not the root cause. Well, that's my insiders, what my insiders tell me anyway. So yes, optically it looks bad, a knee-jerk reaction. But my reading of the situation is that the poor individuals that lost their jobs were not necessarily just the unlucky ones that happened to get caught in the crossfire of the Trent 1000 crisis. It should have happened anyway, crisis or no crisis, to increase the efficiency of the firm. Will the job losses help to fix the Trent 1000 issue quicker? I doubt it. But does that mean that the job cuts was the wrong decision? I guess only time will tell. But was it poorly timed? I think so. I sincerely hope Rolls-Royce get their act together soon, and my best wishes go to those individuals that sadly lost their jobs. Thanks in advance for allowing me to bring a different perspective to this topic. Keep the blue side up. Mexico, Steve.
Shut up, Jeff.
Steve. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, good. I think he's right, actually. This is probably something that should have occurred or happened before.
Was it they say timing is everything?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looked to us like they were going, well, this is, we need to pull our horns in for a while because we've got a big financial commitment to these engines and these problems are going to cost us big time. So that was the obvious conclusion to draw, but it appears it may not be so. However, a lot of companies go through these restructures, and I find it a bit cyclic that the company cuts back, and then over the next few years, it quietly grows again as they discover that the people they got rid of were probably quite important. They need them back or someone to replace them. And then they go, oh, we're spending too much, got to cut back again. It's just part of life nowadays, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so true. All right, number 7. Another reason for 2 pilots in the cockpit. And I paused for a moment because I'm looking at this guy's name, and he wants to help me out. He sent me a link to pronouncenames.com. And so let's hear what they say here.
Chandrasekhar.
Chandrasekhar. Or you could just say shake her. So that's who sent this feedback. He says, hello, Captain Jeff, Captain Nick, Captain Dana, and Dr. Steph.
Hi, Shaker. Sorry.
Chandrasekhar.
Apparently I could say Jay Shaker. I just said, hi, Shaker.
Chandrasekhar.
We apologize, Shaker. We'll continue with your feedback now.
Steph keeps interrupting.
Chandrasekhar.
It doesn't even sound like me.
I know. That's an Indian Steph. Okay. I'm a longtime listener from India. I love the show and eagerly await. Try that again. Blah, 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 blah. All right. I think I'm gonna go for it. I'm a longtime listener from India. I love the show and eager.
Nick, I think you need to do another.
Take 5.
Could you please read this, Nick?
Yes.
Okay.
This is from Shaker. Hi, Shaker. Hello, Captain Jeff, Captain Nick, Captain Dana, and Dr. Steph. I'm a long-time listener from India. I love the show and eagerly await new episodes every week. I admit that I have also caught the syndrome a long time ago. A long time ago. I was reading the news today and found something you might find interesting. An Indigo Airways A320 captain suffered a massive heart attack in flight, but was able to keep control and land the aircraft safely. Good Lord. Here is the link to the article. Thank you so much for all the effort you put in every week to make the show happen. You're very welcome, Shaker. Your show and the Airplane Geeks, who the hell are they, are both responsible for reigniting my passion for flight. Best regards, Q Jeff.
Chandrasekhar.
P.S. I've also copied the article below, so you don't need to visit the webpage. Isn't she wonderful?
Yeah.
Wonderful. He, she?
I think he.
He. Sorry.
I would imagine.
Shaker.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, displaying immense grit, a Cuban pilot of Indigo, despite suffering a massive cardiac arrest in mid-flight, landed the plane safely at Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. Is that Bose? Is that where they make the headphones?
I think the Adwan what's the guy's name? The guy. I think it is an Indian.
Well, I never.
The guy
didn't
that.
know that.
Yeah. What's his name? Oh, somebody.
I have
help
no
me.
idea.
Okay.
Anyway,
I'll look that up while you're.
This airport has the most impossible name. Can you imagine saying this over the radio? Good morning,
Subhas
Subhas Chandra Bose International Airport in Kolkata. Anyway, Captain Seal.
Quick point here, though. I hope he didn't. I don't think he had an actual cardiac arrest. That generally renders people unconscious, but perhaps heart attack or myocardial infarction.
I would have thought.
Yeah.
But I'm only an amateur.
Not full on cardiac arrest, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've also a comment about whether it's actually sensible to keep control of the airplane having suffered a cardiac arrest. That's why we have 2 pilots. Anyway, Captain De Silvio Diaz Acosta, 63. 63. That's my age. Oh, all right. Okay. That's not so cool, is it? Well, yeah. I was about to land his flight from Imphal to, do I have to say it again?
Yes.
To the airport that I previously named, when he complained of an acute chest pain to his co-pilot and began sweating profusely, as reported by News 18. He and his co-pilot did not panic, instead used their alertness and skills to ensure that the situation stayed under control and ensured that flight landed safely. He was immediately taken to the emergency medical unit in the airport. He was referred to a hospital in Shanok after being diagnosed with a cardiac arrest and a severely blocked artery. Cue Dr. Steph.
His condition was serious and he was immediately taken to the emergency ward. Electrocardiography, commonly known as ECG or EKG, was done, wherein we found myocardial infarction, MI, commonly known as a heart attack, said cardiologist Satrajit Samanta. But definitely
I'm glad
not
you guys are reading this.
Cardiac arrest. Notice how the cardiologist did not call it cardiac arrest. That's all I want to point out. Myocardial infarction, heart attack.
Yes.
Back to you in the studio.
Further, the cardiologist attending to Acosta said that during the operation, he suffered from ventricular tachycardia, a heart rhythm disorder and had to be given electric shocks twice to be resuscitated. Well, I've
Yeah,
never witnessed
that's
such an
cardiac
incident.
arrest.
The fact that the cardiac arrest happened in midair and he still landed the flight safely is a miracle. He is fine and out of danger, but we have him under strict observation. Today, his family members will reach India from Havana. Hopefully, he will be discharged in 2 to 3 days, said Dr. Samantha. What do you reckon, Steph?
So I think during whatever procedure they were doing, whether it was stent placement or an actual bypass procedure for his severely blocked artery, is when he actually had the cardiac arrest, which is the ventricular tachycardia that they refer to and which can be remedied with shocks.
Interesting.
Shocking.
I somehow feel that his co-pilot, the first officer, has been sadly left out of this story.
Yeah.
Since I suspect that he did everything.
I
And
just
this
suspect
chap
that's
having a heart attack sat beside him sweating profusely
And
not
probably in
taking
quite a bit
anything
of
away
pain. Yeah.
exactly, not taking anything away from Captain De Silva Vio, but
They didn't even mention the poor first officer's name.
No. That's standard. Because as we all know, the only reason they're there is just to talk on the radio.
Yes, of course. Yes. And to make the captain's tea or whatever.
Well,
there you go.
In summary, we're very glad that the captain of the flight is recovering and that the first officer did a fine job of flying and doing his job.
And I was correct. The guy that founded the company that we all know as Bose, I used their headset. Amar Gopal Bose was an American academic and entrepreneur of Indian descent, an electrical engineer and sound engineer. He was professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. You may have heard it, referred to as MIT. For over 45 years, he is also the founder and chairman of Bose Corporation. So there you go. It is an Indian name, apparently.
But as a general comment, if any of this was actually true, I would be a little concerned that the captain did not give control to his first officer and that he used his immense grit to land the aircraft safely. Because if he was suffering from a heart attack and and this acute chest pains and sweating, he really should have given control. And if he didn't, and I'm going to go, that's not a good move. If he did, then I would really appreciate it if people would acknowledge the part that the first officer took in this story.
Yeah, I think we all suspect that is probably actually what happened.
Yes,
the first officer did probably fly the airplane, and he was in the cockpit. But of course, the journalists out there don't quite grasp exactly what happens in a cockpit situation.
Or in medical.
Or yeah, that too. Or pretty much anything that you know anything about. Sorry, journalists
we
out there.
love the media, don't we?
Yes, we do.
You can send all your feedback to circular file at
complaint department.
Complaint department.
airlinepilotguy.com.
For all the journalists out there.
Yes, especially set up for them. Let's see. I think we can squeeze at least one more in. Peter
sent the actress to the bishop.
Thank you. Peter writes, on APG 329, there was a lively discussion about turbulence from a passenger's point of view. I'd like to provide input from a passenger's point of view, and not just a regular passenger, but one who used to be petrified of flying. And when I say petrified, I mean sweaty palms, shortness of breath, and panic attacks just thinking about a flight I have coming up in 6 months' time. This was about 15 years ago, and two things happened that made me get over my fear. I changed my job to one which required me to take frequent transatlantic flights. It was a job I really wanted, and the travel aspect was non-negotiable. And two, I found Flying Without Fear by Virgin Atlantic. And then he includes a link to that, and we'll put that in the show notes. This consisted of a series of emails explaining in thorough detail all that goes on during a flight. So over time, and with much education, reading and rereading of the articles, I slowly overcame my fear. Oh, and my doctor prescribed diazepam, which greatly helped.
Valium. Good stuff.
Kind of like knock you out.
It relaxes
Or
you.
just makes you not really care about anything?
Yeah.
Okay. Since then, I've become a huge av geek and thoroughly enjoy flying. Being that most passengers have no idea the very basics of flight, the slightest bump, shake, or weird sound is enough to send them into a panic. Here's a recent story that happened to me to illustrate this. A few months ago, I was on a flight from London Heathrow to New York JFK, and approximately halfway through the flight, we hit moderate turbulence, the type where service is suspended and the cabin crew were told to sit down and buckle up, etc. Sitting next to me was an older woman who was convinced we were going down. I stopped what I was doing and tried my best to explain to her what was happening. No matter what I told her, was her mind changed that this was the end. Since I had purchased Wi-Fi access, I pulled out my phone, opened the planefinder.net app, and showed her all the planes ahead of us and how none of them were plunging into the murky depths of the North Atlantic. She still did not believe me. I was trying to explain how the app works, etc., but by the time turbulence had passed and the remainder of the flight was smooth as silk. The entire episode lasted about 10 to 15 minutes. And the point I'm trying to make is that no matter what is actually going on, the 300-plus backseat pilots would have formed their own conclusions, and sometimes it's very hard or impossible to change that. I'm saying this from experience from when I was petrified to step on a plane, or step foot on a plane. An already nervous passenger will form an opinion based on what they are feeling and not what is happening. For such a person, this could very well be the most harrowing experience of their life. As professional pilots, you experience this on a day-to-day basis, so you know what's going on and would consider this normal. I hope this sheds some light on turbulence from a former nervous flyer's point of view. Keep up the good work, etc. Peter.
Yeah, I really appreciate this because it's someone who's actually suffered, and it gives you an insight into what they're thinking, but leaves me with the situation of what do I do? What do I say to a passenger who's extremely nervous, other than explain the facts? And if they won't accept the facts, then I'm a bit flummoxed.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone's definitely made up their mind and they're not willing to change it, there's not much you can do. I guess until they're provided with overwhelming evidence to the contrary, when they're able to get off the plane safe and sound at their destination unscathed. I even then, I guess you probably can't go back and convince people that it wasn't the most terrifying experience of their life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not always the case that people, when armed with knowledge about what's happening and the sounds they're hearing and everything else, are going to somehow be cured of this anxiety. But I think a good percentage of those people, when they have that information, that knowledge of what they're experiencing, that definitely helps them. But there are some that doesn't matter how much education you give them. It's all about feeling, and as you said, not what's actually going on.
Trouble is that I don't know if you've been watching much of the World Cup. There are players there that receive the lightest of touches, and they'll fall on the floor and scream blue murder. And I look at
In
the
soccer?
social.
What? Never.
Yeah, what?
That never
No.
happened.
Really?
They're really not injured?
Yeah. So I look at social media and their response to some events. We covered one, or you guys did, or perhaps we covered it the week before last, which was truly a non-event, and yet the media reported as if the aircraft came close to an absolute disaster. And the captain had to and the chief pilot had to sort of explain that this was an absolute non-event. And I'm just thinking that if someone is truly terrified of flying, then I have an enormous amount of sympathy. But someone who just amplifies what was an insignificant incident just to make a splash on social media, I have no sympathy with at all.
Or respect.
No, exactly.
And that's the official point of view from the Airline Pilot Guy Show. And it's correct. Yes, quick mention, Captain Al, who is ever present on aviation podcasts all around the world, also a seasoned, and when I say seasoned, trust me, seasoned airline pilot. He
I don't know what that means, but
he was in our chat room, but he's gone
Very
because
peppery. Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know why. You can just take it however you want. But anyway, he's no longer with us in the chat room. He's still with us on the earth, I'm sure. I think he's sleeping. Had to get up early. But, he has a side business, and it's called Flight Fear Solutions. And the link to that is flightfearsolutions.co.uk. And he is apparently excellent at helping people work through their fears and anxiety that they may have flying. And so if you're one of those people, check out his website, flightfearsolutions.co.uk.
Indeed.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to bring us to the end of this week's episode. Well, we almost got to all of the feedback there in the folder, but don't worry. We'll push it on to the next show folder. And if you want to learn more about our little show here, you can head over to airlinepilotguy.com. And lots of information there about the crew and the community and the coffee fund and the Plain Tales. If you want to subscribe to the Plain Tales as a separate podcast, the information about how to do that is there as well. Lots of other stuff there as well. And we also have apps for the iPhone and Android platforms. Just check it out at the appropriate app stores. And we're also on social media, Dr. Steph.
Social media, you can head over to Twitter and find us using the handle @APGCrew. Lots of good community interaction going on there. If you like Facebook instead, www.facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. Interact with the community there, share articles, see what others have to say, and we hope to see you there.
Excellent. And we're also on Slack, a quasi social media site. And Hillel is the one that set that up and runs it for us, and he'll tell us all about it.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1, Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thank you, Hillel. And really looking forward to the next few weeks, the trip in the next couple of weeks to the UK, and meeting Nigel Demery and reuniting with my good friend and co-host, Captain Nick, and Dr. Steph, and Dana, perhaps, and all of you over there in the UK who happen to be hanging out at Riot or Farnborough. Looking forward to this trip. So anything else to add before we sign off?
Don't think so.
Not for me.
Okay. Well, in that case, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care. God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Yay.
Bye.
Thanks, Liz, for... Oh, I forgot to mention her specific. We mentioned her several times. They know who she is and what she does.
Add that to the show notes somewhere.
But Tarquin, yes, we're looking forward to meeting Tarquin.
I don't know. Tarquin's awfully condescending when it comes to Americans, I get the feeling.
I think he's just trying to be helpful.
He's trying to wind you up.
No, I really appreciate it. Ivor's a funny guy. He's a lovely man, he says about himself. No, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed reading it and reading it to everybody on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And actually, I learned something. It was very educational.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I'm saying I learned something. It may not have been the right or correct thing, but I learned something or some things. Yeah. So I don't know. Anybody in the chat room going to be? Are we going to be seeing any of you when we're over there?
I think we'll meet Tarquin for sure.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
I'm hoping it comes with a Tarquin T-shirt.
It's only
So he can
condescending.
identify.
You can't understand it. A condescending thought on condescension.
Richard Adams.
Yes, at Fabral.
Neil. Landward.
Neil, yay. Richard, Ivor, Tarquin. Anybody else?
Neville.
Who?
Neville.
Who?
Yeah.
Yeah. Neville who?
So Neville, you're not going to make it to Riyadh, huh? Okay.
Nigel's going to be at obviously Riyadh, but he's not going to make Farnborough, I don't think.
Oh. So
he's off again.
I was watching the latest PT UK, and it sounds like the that nobody from the PT UK is going to be at Riyadh this year.
No.
Surprised. I kind of
We've got the place to ourselves.
To meet up with you guys. Yeah.
They've had.
Tony. Pardon me?
I said those guys have had a busy year.
Yeah, they have.
I'm sure
They
time
have.
off and things.
Very true. Very true. Can't get the time off. Yeah. Well, you got the time off for your wedding. Come on,
Priorities.
Nev.
I mean, we're just saying.
Yeah, priorities. Come on.
I mean, I guess I should say I'm not going to Riyadh either.
Okay.
Pip and Al will be at Riyadh.
Well, that's no
good thing.
Yeah. Is that supposed to cheer me up?
Yeah. Is that? Yeah.
I think they're going to be there on Saturday, though, right?
Hope so, because we're there Sunday.
Yeah.
Don't want to bump into those guys more often than you have
Well,
to.
there's those microphone hogs.
They're podcast squatters or pod squatters. Well, actually, no. Pip
does have
actually
his
has his
own.
own podcast. I can't call him a pod squatter, but he does pod squat on other podcasts.
He does, and Al is definitely a pod squatter.
Yeah.
Is that a new word you just made up?
No, that's a word that I've been using. We've been using it at the StarQuest Production Network for many, many years.
Oh, right. Okay.
If Mike Kuipers is still there, he'll indicate that is true. That's a term that we created at our network for many, many years ago. Those people that just show up on all these different, they show up on different shows, or they don't have their own show, so they're out there on the podcasts, but they never have to do any of the work.
They're the smart ones, is what you're saying.
Smart, yeah, actually pretty smart people.
We usually put our current position out on Twitter, Nige, normally, or sometimes I guess we could use Slack, but we just decide on a bit of social media, and then we just regularly update that, and people can sort
If
of
we
chase
remember,
around.
we're not drinking too much.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We usually find somewhere nice with a cold beer and sit there for an hour and see if anyone
If you can locate a beverage serving station, you have a good
There you
chance
go.
of finding us.
Absolutely.
Yes, Mike Kuipers. I knew you were there and you would help me with this. Maria, who was kind of my producer for the Catholic Weekend show, she came up with the term pod squatter. Actually made some T-shirts with that on it. Yeah, nothing is wrong with that, main man Micah. I think it's, as Steph has said, very, very smart people are pod squatters. Let's see. What else was I going to read? I saw something. Oh, I did not notice that, Ivor. The Tarquin's initials, Tarquin Wilberforce St. John Snodgrass.
Oh, very good.
TWSS. Did you notice that?
Well, I saw it in the signature, and I was going, "Why has he put that sort of C-shirt? No,
She shot.
Because I thought, well, he hasn't actually said anything like a double entendre there that justifies it. Now I understand.
I was looking for what that was. Connection, to be honest.
I wasn't looking. Yeah, I just thought it was names that would have some significance to those of you in the UK.
We're not actually very smart.
Huh?
No.
Kind of dense.
But Ivor, thank you very much for pointing that out, because now it makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Shame it wasn't on the video. Oh, sorry, on the show.
Yeah.
Because, never mind.
Well.
Too late.
The smart ones out there will make the connection.
Yes. Nev is
Are there any
brining his
smart ones
video
out
gear. Nev, let me tell you something. I don't think that's a good idea, because salt and water and video gear don't mix.
Grinding all my video gear. Yeah, it might preserve it.
It does tenderize it though, Lane.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste.
Delicious.
It tastes a
I
little
hear it's
salty.
delicious. Yeah.
Oh man, they're gonna need to bring their makeup people. Thanks, Micah. And so sorry to hear that you're not going to make it over there.
I
was
know.
disappointed when I
Sad face.
learned that. Yeah, I hope it wasn't something that we said or did or didn't do or didn't say. But we'll miss you.
What?
Sure. I can't be responsible for anything I do or don't do or say or not say. I should be.
So you
but
just
I'm not.
can't be held responsible?
Exactly.
Fair enough. Who should we hold responsible then?
You,
HR.
HR.
Excellent. Great.
It's all your fault.
Send all your comments to HR doesn't read these at
HR.
airlinepolicy.com.
HR and the production crew.
Yep, of one.
Yeah, well, it's a small crew, but it's perfectly suited for,
Absolutely.
They're effective.
Yes.
There you go.
Oh,
Jeff
boy.
is irresponsible. Well, is it taking you this long to work that out?
You should have considered that before you
Yeah, before you took the
decided
post.
to take me up on my offer of producing the show. Oh, boy. Well, yeah, that HR chart, Liz, that was classic. Shall we go ahead and stop the stream?
I'm
Sure.
afraid so.
Yeah. What time is it there?
It's only
10:26.
10:30. So
Okay.
not too
10:26.
bad.
I can't read. Wow.
I'm glad that we didn't keep you up too late.
No, it's been perfect.
All right, and enjoy watching the Grand Prix.
Will I?
It's the last half of it. Actually, the whole thing was very exciting. A lot of action, and the last 1/2 to 1/4 of the races just had me like on the edge of my seat.
Oh, good.
It was exciting.
But was the result one that I will enjoy?
You'll have to be the judge of that.
Oh God!
I'm not gonna give it away.
Oh. Okay.
See,
I'll have to
Ivor
watch it
agrees. It was good. May not be. It may be not as good as it could have been, Ivor, but it was close.
Stop it, you two.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't say anything else without giving
And
it away.
then go watch the what was it, the NASCAR Coke?
Yeah, I need to watch the
Coke
replay of
Zero Sugar Free something or other 400 from Daytona last night.
Daytona 400. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find a replay of that. Or at least the highlights.
Yeah, the highlights would be fine to watch.
Sweet. All right, folks. Well, thanks for hanging out with us on a
Yep.
Sunday afternoon. We do appreciate it. Sorry it took so long for us to finally get this thing recorded. But as I said before, it's going to be one of those things in the next 2-3 weeks that I'm not sure exactly when we're going to be doing shows and such, but we'll do our best to get something out there, reasonably timely.
With
And,
any luck.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Jensen Button was second. Yeah, I was amazed. I didn't even realize that he was a current driver for Formula One, but apparently he filled in for somebody today. Just kidding. He was there at the race, but he wasn't racing. All right, everyone. Thanks, and
Catch you next time.
Thank you, Neil. Somebody turned left.
Very funny.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.